Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. 6 o'clock. October 26th meeting.
You want to take it?
Minutes, anybody, bills are going around. What about minutes from prior meetings? Anybody have any issues, questions?
Who is doing the minutes now?
Lucia. Yes.
Wow.
She spends a lot of time on it.
Yeah, you can tell.
Are we good with them? Do you want to approve the minutes for August 17th and September 7th? Were you here, Delisa, or were you on vacation then?
I can't remember. I'm on vacation so much, you know.
All right, just check. That used to be my excuse.
I know.
Now it's yours.
I know.
And nobody has any problems with them? You? Are you good?
I'm good.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for August 17th and September 7th.
I so move.
I
Second
accept
it. All in favor?
Aye.
Shut my phone off, make sure nobody calls me, not that I'm expecting anybody to.
There were bills going around. There was one bill from Innes Associates for $16,000 for.
I know, Bartlett has
July
it,
and
it's over
August.
there. Do you want to sign it, Anna? I don't think you're the only one that has it. Probably not.
I'll take a look.
Okay, member up input. Update on projects. Anybody have anything? Do you have anything about Hager, Northern Bank, or bicycle and protect? I saw the email that you sent that we told them we approved it. Okay.
Yep. Circled back with MAPC that the planning board had approved the bicycle and pedestrian plan. The BPAC it will be scheduled to vote on accepting it at their next meeting. They didn't have a October meeting, so they'll shoot for November for that.
Okay. Board members, anybody have anything? Can you tell us about Belgium?
I wasn't in Belgium.
I got you wrong.
For MPIC, we are going to be presenting an update to the master plan at the town meeting. So, and I suspect there will be questions as to when the master plan is going to be updated. And apparently that would come to the planning department, so I think it's just something we need to be aware of. And I did a little bit of research, and it looks like they're updated, it could be anywhere from 10 to 20 years. So, just FYI.
Are we even at 10 years yet?
No, it's 7.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like we just did it.
Yeah.
So on our budget, on the 10-year capital plan, I have money starting in 2027. Requests for funding starting in 2027 for a
Okay.
3-year period.
Okay.
So it's on the radar.
Yeah, okay, good. I just wanted to let you know about that.
Anna, do you have anything?
Yeah, real quick before an update. So is this for the additional sites that we had Ennis look at?
That's wrapped into that would be part of it, I guess.
Okay, great. Yes, so I do have a couple of quick update items. So the Affordable Housing Trust is working on a 5-year action plan and also working out the details for accepting the Durkee Farmhouse, which will likely be by the end of this year. And then second, there will be an event for seniors on Tuesday, November 14th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. in the library. So here's the flyer that you might see around town coming up in the next couple of weeks, also available online and in the broadcaster. So this event for seniors is asking, have you wondered about the potential for new Littleton housing options? If yes, then please register to attend an informative meeting with several Littleton real estate agents and Rick Freiberg, who is the engineer on behalf of Lupoli Companies, which is the developer of King Street Commons. We'll look to answer questions such as timing, rental versus ownership options, size of units, and how the affordable housing lottery system works. So this will be held at the Reuben Hoare Library in the Sturts Room, and so there'll be information about how to sign up to attend. So hope to see seniors there and hope to get your questions answered.
Thank you. Bartlett?
I don't have much. I walked through the Durkee farmhouse and looked at the work that needs to be done, and I'm anticipating taking control and getting it fixed up, which will be a
Okay.
major task.
Did it have a fire? I heard that there
It
was.
did. There was a serious fire in there. About, I would guess, a third of the roof's planking has been replaced. It's new. A lot of what's left is charred. A lot of the rafters are charred. One of the end walls is pretty charred. The fire department doesn't have any records that go back before 2000, so we don't know when that fire happened. There's no signs of it on the second floor. It's all in the attic, but I don't know much more about it.
I just heard that. Thank you. Jeff?
I'm just thinking about what's going on with the CPC, and basically, though, I forget what we did. We supported the Webster purchase. However, by law, the CPC cannot spend more than the appraisal, which was $600-something thousand. So that's, out of there. However, we supported it.
When you say we, you mean
The
CPC?
CPC that we have, for purchase.
Yeah, and to just expand on that
Yeah.
just a little bit, if the town spends more than the appraised value, no CPC funds can be
Exactly,
used
right.
for it.
So if there was a sale at the appraised amount, CPC money could be used, but that's not the case. Pretty much you might be interested that the CPC gave money to actually repair all of the windows in the original Rubenhor library, some of which has already been done, and it's pretty, I was there yesterday when it was open. It's pretty nice. They have someone who takes them out, takes them to a shop, repairs them, paints them, puts them back in. And whoever it is very dedicated to it. It's a young guy. And the selectmen, we also approved lighting Corporate Field, and the selectmen decided they didn't want to do that for whatever reason.
Okay, anybody else? Before I went to the community one-stop, I think it was.
Grant announcement.
Yeah, grant announcement, because Littleton was one of the successful recipients of the grant. So we got $4 million for infrastructure through the Community One Stop, and that's the portal that they're going to be using now. They're rolling out. What is there? 16 different agencies that are different grant programs that are going to be all put together into that.
There's a smaller number than that right now, but the 16 number is the number of grants that communities will not be eligible for if they don't comply with MBTA communities.
Correct. And they're also rolling a housing project along with that as well, same thing, through the same
Yeah.
portal.
A new housing grant program, I think. you
Correct.
said.
They are funding it with $4 billion, but next year should be $160 million or something like that, and they're going to try to earmark affordable housing, senior housing, veteran housing, all over the place. So there'll be funds available for that. Governor Healy stressed housing is the number one priority in the state right now because people can't afford to live in the state. They're very concerned, well, they're very positive about this MBTA communities initiative that they've started. 61% of the grants that were issued on Wednesday went to MBTA communities. And it's only going to probably go up because if you're not into the program, they've stressed that they're not going to be receptive to giving out money to different cities and towns if they're not being pro-housing, and that involves the MBTA communities. I also had a chance to speak with, Kim Driscoll, who's the lieutenant governor, was well aware of Littleton, what we're doing, and how we're proactive, ahead of the curve about zoning and changing zoning for more housing in Littleton. They know about all our projects. They're very supportive of that. I got to speak with, I forget what the guy's name is. Yeah. And I asked them specifically about cities and towns that are trying to circumvent it by zoning properties that will never be built. And he assured me that the governor's office is not going to look favorably on that and not going to approve it. They want this stuff built, and they want it in places where it can be built. So, they were, you said Lexington, right? They're looking.
Well, Lexington has adopted MBTA communities, and they've been reviewing compliance for the last 5-6 months since May. They're vetting all of the properties.
Right. And the other thing is that it's not going to change. The template's there, the boilerplate, everything they want for us is not going to change substantially within the next year, couple of months, whatever.
I agree. I can't see the Massachusetts legislature voting to walk back their housing initiatives
Right.
that they've already approved.
So waiting is really the only thing waiting does is it puts us further behind in the line. If we're approved and we're applying for grants now, we also have something like $16 million out there that are asked through the state right now, through different programs.
Right, so looking over the last about 5 or 6 years, Littleton has been awarded about $16 million of grants that we wouldn't qualify for in the future if we don't comply with MBTA
Right.
requirements.
Mhm.
Housing choice funds, $250,000 every other year, you can apply for that. MassWorks infrastructure, we can keep going back to that source.
Mhm.
And now with the new housing one, we have the ability to apply for those grants.
And the governor made it quite clear to everybody that was there that she's serious about this. This is her number one project. She kept saying housing, 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 so she was very on point about it. Other than that, like I said, we got $4 million for infrastructure, and don't we have another 10 or 12 on the books already?
We have $9.5 million on the books,
Right.
waiting to get the contract signed and get funded,
Right.
pending some public-private agreements.
Right. So it was very interesting to see the public sector and the private sector together at that meeting yesterday. There is money available. There is going to be money available to fund alternative housing that, financially doesn't make sense for the developers to do. There's going to be, I wouldn't say boatloads, but there's going to be definitely programs for that, senior housing, affordable, and all of that. It was very interesting, and like I said, they know where Littleton is. That's for sure. It's a good thing, actually.
Oh, yeah, I think that's great.
Anyway, so that was it. It was very interesting. They didn't serve refreshments or anything. I was upset.
That's the main feedback.
That was the big thing. Yeah, I got all the way over there at 10:30, and there was no coffee or donuts. Anyway, but that was it. So other than that, we have public input. Anybody have anything they want to say? That was a guess. You know what?
Mr. Chairman, George Sanders, 682 Great Road. I'd like to know how far are you going back and saying how much money the state has given through grants to Littleton here for the town meeting. I remember that in one of the meetings here, you said that you were going to get that figure so that the people will be aware that with regards to this bylaw, that if we are trying to kill, not putting up MBTA housing, then that's what we're up against and would lose in that sense. And I can tell you, I talked to the general manager at the Light and Water Department here about 30 minutes ago, and he informed me that the state just gave Littleton a forgiving 10% of the cost of the sewer system, which come out to be $3 million. And that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not even counted as part of the grant programs.
Yeah, that's not it. We got 4 million and a forgiveness of 3 million on top of that. I think mine,
So I think, I'm looking, reaching back to 2018 right now, but I'll finalize that spreadsheet as soon as I
yeah,
can.
so we're at like 16, 18 million, going back to 2018. And we have 8 or 10 million in the pipeline right now going forward that we're trying to get asks through the state. So yeah, trust me, I'll make the residents in the town aware how much money we're talking. Thank you.
And we could also be sued, which
Yeah, we
means
could also
then,
be
yeah,
sued.
which we will be sued.
Right.
So,
Yeah, ask Coles and how they're making out. with
yeah,
it.
exactly. So
And
that's
they're the
just
number
more
one.
money
There you
that
go.
we would lose.
So anyway, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Manbacher.
Mark Grandbacher, 205 Hartwell. I agree we have to comply with the MBTA communities, which we are if you count all of the housing that has been zoned at 550 and 410. I am currently working with our legislatures to get that to count. We are building we've already zoned for more than the requirement for MBTA houses. What we haven't done is met the requirement to build it within half mile of the train station. So our legislatures are well aware of this. Everyone is supporting the development at 550. That's where the grant money came from, is to support housing. We are building the housing. We've zoned for it. The only requirement that we're asking the state to waive is the half mile from the train station. And they are I've talked to both of our legislators, outside legislators from our district, legislatures from outside of our district. They are also supportive of this. We have time to figure out whether we want to do what we want to do at the train station, if the requirement is going to be waived or not. We have time. We don't have to do this now. So our legislatures are well aware. We are supporting. I mean, we've met with Kendra Soul before out here at 550, before she was elected. So they know what's going on in town, and they know that we are supportive of housing. But we don't have to necessarily do it. The only requirement we're not meeting right now is the 150 within half mile of the train station. If you actually look at the MBTA regulations, it's kind of unfair for some towns. Westford has a requirement to build the units, but since they don't have a train station, they can put them anywhere they want in town. Doesn't have to be near any sort of a train station. So there's a dichotomy between towns that have MBTA stations and those that don't. The legislatures are aware of this. They're looking into it. They are looking into these regulations. So before we do anything, we should wait and see what the final results are. So,
Mark, why wouldn't we want to build housing absolutely right next to the train station?
the housing next to the train station will require more services, more car traffic than the housing at the common.
Not at
More
all.
than what? Something's going to go there. And I'd like to remind you that we were in the process of zoning more than 150 units on that site before the MBTA
So
communities came.
I'm not necessarily opposed to putting housing on that site. I'm opposed to what the current plan is and the current density is. If you take out the MBTA community requirement, you should ask yourself, would you be doing this? Would you be zoning, importing this bylaw there if we weren't being required by the state?
Yes,
We were.
yes,
We
it
were on
was
the-
part
on
of
the
the master
road.
plan.
You were zoning the entire 30 acres for
Right.
something. Now you've
For like
taken.
400 units.
Yes,
Yeah.
and now you've taken 10 acres and said you want 150 there. So the question is, what are we getting for, would we be going forward with this plan as is if we weren't required? And I don't think it would pass.
Absolutely.
If we're not
No, I don't
required.
think we would be doing this. I mean, that's part of it. This is, I mean, from what you're saying, this is then evolving, right? So we were going down the path in 2021 to say, okay, we're going to be mandated to do this, and we're going to do it right there. And then we did move forward on that one. And then things changed. Things changed when the IBM site opened up, and we were able to build all that housing. So we have over 1,000 units that are going to be built between 410 Great Road and King Street Common, that whole complex right there, right? So all of that, if our nut is 750, all of that can be very well taken care of over there. In fact, it's almost 40% more than what the state is asking us for. So if the state is willing to give us Littleton dispensation to not have to do that, then yeah, I totally agree with you. We should wait.
No, absolutely not. We need housing. We need for sale units. We need empty nesters, senior housing.
I'm not disagreeing.
Well, then
that
why
there should
wait?
be, because I don't think what we're doing is what the town wants.
you know-
And it's what we should be doing. We should be zoning the entire parcel and figuring out what we want for the entire
We
parcel and come on.
can't. In order
Sure
to
we
be
can.
compliant, we can't.
That's what I'm saying, is we don't need to
It's
do
not
this to
gonna
be
change.
compliant yet. You
We-
don't know that.
It's not gonna change.
It's not, why do you think it's, you're talking to politicians. Of course they're gonna tell you what you want to hear.
And why would
The
they give us
politicians are the ones that wrote the regulations.
They're not going to give us dispensation just because
No.
we're putting in King Street. We would have had to put in more at the
Train
at the
stations.
station anyways.
It's pure
Why?
pure speculation,
Yes.
and you might end up, if we wait, with this, whatever scenario you say, with more units there, then, I just
Our
don't.
More
no.
units where?
No, we wouldn't end up, because, no, we could end up with just
I'm not
Amazon
saying we
warehouses,
wait, I'm
which
not saying
fine,
we,
you know.
I'm not saying we say in 2025 or 2026 we do this. I'm saying the MBTA communities regulations have to be put in place by the end of 2024. You can't say that our requirements aren't going to change after, in
You
2024.
can't say they are.
I know I can't, but what I'm
So
saying is.
we are dealing with what is now.
Now.
You're doing
That's
what
some
is.
speculation
But
based on a few politicians.
You're dealing with what you think, what you know is now, but you don't know what it will be in the future. So
It's
if
not going to change.
You do not know that.
They-
In 2021, we had no idea that IBM was going to be coming
That
on the
doesn't, I'm
market.
talking about
The
what the
train
state
station
is
is going to
asking.
stay there.
The train-
doesn't matter.
The
Right.
MBTA
So
communities
guess what?
isn't going
All right,
away.
enough,
I-
stop,
I
everybody.
understand. I'm not saying
Seriously.
the MBTA
Let's
community
keep,
is
can we
going
just
away.
bring our voices
So
down,
guess,
please?
so guess what? If we table this and wait, we still have 2 more town meetings, and if the state doesn't move anything, what is the acronym? The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities does not change and provide greater flexibility for us, then fine, we put it back out there again.
It's too late. Okay, so then all
It's
the,
too late for what?
All the work we've done, all the money
Right.
we've
But
paid,
what would
all
be-
the
what would be
results
the
we've done, you
change?
just
Right.
want to throw away.
No,
Like
not throw
40
away.
years, yes you do.
Not throw away.
Yes you do.
Because guess what?
I
It's
don't get it.
ridiculous.
If we
don't
don't
get
get that,
waiting.
if we don't get that flexibility, then this plan can just be put back out there
and you won't
again.
get a dime next year when all the
That's
funding
not
money comes
true.
out. Yeah, it's
So
absolutely.
much
No,
for
it is
affordable
not true.
housing
We
and
have
carbon
until
neutral, and oh, let's
2024
be
to
so
put this in
green.
place. They can't
The
enforce.
governor's office is not stupid. They hear people coming onto public meetings and saying, we should zone this someplace where it'll never be built. They recognize that. They're not
That's what the
gonna,
legislators actually told me, so.
and they're gonna be found out that you can't do it. They want viable communities. They want train stations.
Again, we don't have to pass anything to 2024.
Then we're not gonna get a dime
Why-
next
why
year.
wait?
Why?
We will get.
No, we're not.
There is no.
There's
how-
no
Mark,
connection.
why wait?
Hold on.
It
Wait a
absolutely
second.
is.
Because we don't know what the final requirements are gonna be in 2024. That's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
don't accept that.
No,
They've
I
already
don't-
changed them.
They haven't. We have a boilerplate that
No,
they.
that's not true. They have changed
haven't
them.
They've
changed them.
tweaked
They've
it, yeah.
written, they've fleshed them out from what they had originally. The intention's still there.
The intention is still there to build housing, and we've already are complying with that. That
No,
is what
we're
I'm saying.
not.
Yes, we are. The Littleton is
Well-
required to build 750 units. Are we, have we not zoned
No,
1,000?
why don't you listen to the town planner for a minute, okay?
No, Littleton's not required to build.
We're required to zone 750 units, yes.
Absolutely.
And we've zoned more than that. The one
Would you
requirement we
let her
have not
finish,
made
please,
is
Mark?
at the train
Mark,
station.
could you
Mr.
let
Ratliff,
the
please-
town
please
planner
wait.
finish, please, okay?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
No, no.
Yeah, point of order.
Why?
You're the chairman of this, you need to control this meeting.
Well, I'm
You
telling
got
you,
other people controlling the meeting. You
I
the chair.
agree. Your 2 minutes is up, Mr. Rimbaugh.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You've made your point. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I would like to hear
That
what,
was gonna be my point.
yeah.
So we do have updated recommendations from DHCD, HLC, Housing and Livable Communities. They have updated, fleshed out the regulations. But like I said before, I don't see the legislature walking back the housing legislation that they passed. When it first was passed, it looked like Littleton would have to put all the housing, would be required to zone for multifamily housing at the commuter rail station. Now, there is ability to utilize the King Street Common and all the work that we've done on revitalizing Littleton Common. However, I honestly don't believe that the state would walk back requirements for multifamily zoning at the commuter rail station.
It's a critical component to this whole thing.
I believe so.
We have a consultant and an expert. Do you think the state's going to change anything now that they've rolled all of this out, that they're going to say, oh, this is a MBTA community bylaw, we don't need them at the MBTA stations anymore?
So for everyone, Ewan Ennis, I'm the CTO and data scientist at Ennis Associates. Emily is at a different town meeting tonight, so wasn't able to attend. At this point, the state is not changing anything. So for Littleton, while you are required to zone for 750 units, 20% of those units must be within half a mile of the train station. So having 750 units at King Street doesn't help you. You have to have 20% of the units are within half a mile of the station. That requirement isn't changing.
So waiting 6 months, 8 months, 10 months isn't going to change anything?
At this point, no.
No. And wouldn't it make more sense if they're going to start giving money out for senior housing, residential, affordable housing, that we're top of the list?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the aspects, the reason why I don't see it changing, and certainly we don't see it changing, is that communities that have until the end of this year to comply, they need to comply to the same 20%. So rolling back, coming back and rolling back would need to have been done way earlier in the year. So for those communities that are currently working through town meetings for compliance by the end of this year.
So what's the difference between the ones that have to be by the end of this year and us for next year? Why are they-
Rapid transit.
Rapid transit.
So you
Which
mean
we are
more
not.
inner city stuff?
It's also those, we have one coming.
It's like Newton.
Yeah, the ones
subway.
closer that have subway stuff, not
Right.
train stuff.
Well,
Right.
Or they have commuter rail
Right.
running through them. There's some that have both subway and commuter rail. They have to be.
Right.
They're looking at multiple places that they have to meet those requirements. That's why I don't think the state is going to be changing those numbers.
And that's a good point, the fact that they have till the end of this year and they're not rolling it back, so.
Right, in the compliance schedule, we need to leave time in the compliance schedule to apply to HLC and hear back from them, whether or not our bylaws.
I think it's there's at least 3 months of time that they need to review what you submit.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to say? Ryan, you want to? Nope, you're good. All right, thank you. All right, so we have an 8:15. We're a little late for that. Continued public hearing. MBTA Community Zoning Bylaw amended King Street Common District, Littleton Station, MBTA Multifamily District. Board recommendations and report to the town meeting.
Okay, let's go over here to this one. Sorry. Wow.
So we're gonna have, oh,
Go ahead.
well, I'll cover while you're figuring out, your computer. We're gonna do a presentation, Emily, myself, and you, correct?
Yeah, we can work out the details of presentation on town meeting floor.
Okay.
So we'll have the zoning bylaw as we brought to the public hearing.
Mhm.
Any changes that you request tonight, we've got 2 recommended updates, just filling in the blanks from the draft, the initial draft. And then we also have FAQ that Innes Associates put together that it starts with what is MBTA Communities, goes through what the bylaw proposal is, and references Article 19, which is the MBTA Communities bylaw.
Okay. And how many slides do you have that we're gonna present?
Right now it's 6, but we can go through those.
Okay. And you're gonna get a list of the grants going back, if you want to, 2018, if you want to go a little further back, and what's we're proposing for moving forward would be nice, so that people have a number.
Yeah, we weren't able to go any further back with that, back in time, just because of the accounting system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll finish putting that together. So you have the draft that came to, oh, sorry, your meeting, not mine.
No, go ahead, keep going.
I was just gonna say there's 2 recommended changes to the draft. The first is reference the new A&R plan that shows the 10.75 acre parcel. That's the A&R plan that you endorsed just last meeting.
Last meeting.
And that created the 10-acre parcel to be rezoned near the commuter rail station. And the second is section 173-253G, to change the minimum lot area per dwelling unit from 2,500 square feet to 2,300 square feet, with the new parcel size and having 20% of the total number of units needing to be within half a mile of the commuter rail station. If you tweak the number from 2,500 to 2,300, that will, when you run that through the compliance model, then that will meet the requirements.
And let's be clear, the only reason we're at 10 acres and not the total parcel is because we asked them to do it to be in compliance for the density with the state. This originally was going to be the whole 34 acres, correct? We all remembered it's that, right?
Well, yeah,
Right.
so last time we proposed the zoning, there was probably over 600 units between this site and part of the nursing home, the care
Right.
center site.
No, but what I'm saying is, when we originally went down this just for the 150, we were looking at the whole parcel.
Mhm.
Okay, because the concern is about, why is it only at 10 acres? The rest is,
So those are the only 2 updates to the version.
Those are the 2 staff recommendations on the 2 updates. Last meeting, you received the written comments from the property owner, and you have not discussed those yet.
And last time we also received all my comments, and so it doesn't sound like any of those are going to be put in there.
Well, it's up to the board consensus to make any changes.
I'm not a big fan of a big handout with a lot of changes to it. So, I think 2 is fine. I don't know, Anna, what changes do you want to see on it?
Well, under 173-247C, I still believe that it should specifically state that there will be a shuttle between King Street Common and the MBTA station. To the point that Mr. Rambacher brought up earlier, I think that is another plus for saying, you know what, to the state, we already have a shuttle system that's going to be in place, so that will provide transportation between King Street Common. The design guidelines, 173-255G, they aren't in the proposed bylaw. We learned about that at the last meeting, so,
I thought we talked about, once this got passed, we're gonna put the 21 pages of design guidelines into our,
but for any other district zoning that we have done, we've always put the design guidelines in there. And if you recall, form-based code was well over 20 pages with design guidelines included in there. So,
this is a.
so
Go ahead.
if we did it before, I just don't understand why it's not being done now. And so it makes it feel very unclear about what could be built there. Say, the third item is 173-255H, which waives a majority of performance standards and criteria. I want that item removed.
Okay.
So I want to address the design guidelines. It does specifically say that the site plan review authority may adopt and amend by simple majority vote design guidelines which shall be applicable to all, et cetera, et cetera. So I went back to the website, and it's specifically under this draft bylaw referred to the design guidelines we did for the 40R.
Right.
And then I've looked at them, and basically, they're gorgeous. I mean, if we, it's, the images are, I must say, one of the images of a building I designed, so of course I'm gonna, like it. But I guess I'm sort of half in and half out. I mean, I think we can definitely adopt them. I mean, could it be a simple, referral to these design guidelines that we adopted in 2021, or?
So my recommendation is not to point to those yet, because when those were developed, you were looking at a mixed-use
That's true.
development there.
Yeah.
I think these guidelines, like you said, they're almost there, they're good. They need to be tweaked to meet what the board wants. This is the same process that the Conservation Commission went through when the local wetlands bylaw was first adopted. You do the framework first, these are the requirements, and then you develop the process, how to implement it.
Well, that's not how we've done it in the past, though. So why we would deviate from what we've done in that particular sense, and especially, to what Mr. Rambacher said, if we have time and we have another, couple of months to be able to go through these design guidelines, and the state doesn't make any changes to that 20% rule, then guess what? We're back in business in May to be able to add the design guidelines.
Why don't we
I'm
have
just
the
simply
60
saying,
Why don't we have
hold
the
on.
design guidelines? We have a process of adopting design guidelines.
It says may adopt design guidelines.
Well,
So then
say
you're
shall.
asking the town, no, it says may.
I know, but let's change it to shall.
So here's
So
the
we have
thing.
to have 15
So
meetings
we're
on the
asking the
design
town
guidelines?
to accept the zoning in this district and not knowing anything about what it could possibly look like.
That's
Right.
what zoning is. Zoning does not design projects.
Well, in the past, we have
No,
included all
we
the...
don't. Jeff's
Really? Do you want me to show
100%
you?
right. He's 100% right. This is a
All
zoning.
these house lots we approve, we don't design the houses that go.
Okay, well, I just wanted to be very clear to our residents that if this zoning district proceeds, that there will be no design guidelines.
There's 21 pages of them that we're going to adopt after the fact, so that's a
I think
totally false statement.
that's actually a really not, I don't even know what the word is. That's a terrible comment. It's extremely misleading.
It's
That
not misleading,
it
it's the
is-
fact.
You're saying that there will be no design guidelines for this project. That's
Well,
what you're
there
saying,
may
Anna.
be,
And
according to that.
Anna,
There
it's
may
so
be.
disingenuous. You are.
Exactly.
Stop.
Like
You
this board
are
has done
disingenuous.
disingenuous things before.
Stop. You don't want it to go the town meeting in a week, it's obvious. So we're either going to listen to what you have to say, or we're moving on, because it's obvious
So,
you're not in favor of it.
I am just responding to my colleagues' comments.
Can we go through the other your other concerns?
So 247C states that there will be a shuttle between King Street Common and the MBTA station.
Well, that's, okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I comment on that?
Sure.
For the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein, to mandate a mitigation factor in zoning, I think is beyond the scope of zoning. That's why you have site plan review and you have the design guidelines. To mandate that to effectuate this project, you have to have a shuttle service. I don't know how that could ever be achieved because there are numerous approvals state and perhaps depending on how it's run. And that's, zoning is, as I often say, is the key to open up the potential. That's why you come back to the planning board to execute the design plan. And if mitigation is required to require a shuttle, that's great. But the public policy here is to develop people that, or to develop a product that allows people to live adjacent to the station so they don't need a shuttle in many respects. And transit-oriented development has been touted in this state and many other states as a laudable goal. One other thing that I'd like to just have the record show, our client has worked with the town for 6 years through the 40R process, has been cooperative, and to the extent they have numerous other inquiries about the availability of this project, this property for other uses, to ask them to wait further and to, with the uncertainty of what that entails, I don't think is fair. I mean, you could do that, that's in your prerogative, but in the same token, they will be well advised to consider other options.
So I would like to state, if I may, that 173-247, item number 4 says, encourage connections between the commuter rail station and the community multi-use path. That's where I would advise that we put it, because this project is connected to King Street Common. And so therefore, by adding that comment, it strengthens the fact that there is a transportation connection. Encourage connections.
Well,
That's
encourage
what
is
it does.
fine.
Right.
Encourage is fine.
Right,
but
so all I'm
to-
saying is add the language about something that is factually correct. It is in the King Street Common decision.
That the King Street Common has to do it. It's not in this decision
And,
that
But
they
it's
have.
coming to,
Encouraged is not, encouraged is
That would
fine.
be,
Yeah.
all right,
that
well,
would be one of the considerations that I would fully expect the board, when they're reviewing a project, to consider. And that we would know that that is an option on the table, that when the project comes forward, that we would have to look at what interconnections are possible, feasible, and efficient. So, but I don't object to the word encourage. No.
Okay.
What else, Anna?
so the design guidelines we just talked about. And then 255H talks about waiving majority of performance standards and criteria.
Can I make a comment on that, Mr. Chairman? The purpose of that is you go through the design, you have criteria, and there may be a situation to make it a better project that you tweak you can waive a requirement because you have to make a determination that if you waive a setback or an orientation of a building, it results in a better project. I think the goal should be that everyone has a project that they can look at and be proud of. We're not saying waive them, we're saying that if the board determines that it makes it a better project, that they have that flexibility to do so.
We waive things all the time. This is May, it doesn't say that, this is normal.
I don't even think it should be in there because we have waivers, they can request a waiver for anything that they do here. When they come before us for site
And
plan approval, they
it's a
can ask for a
majority
waiver.
vote.
Mhm. I don't even care if it's out of there, because it's, you're
As a
gonna.
lawyer, I'd recommend to keep it in, but
I don't know, you would have it, but we grant waivers all the time, and they're.
Well, when the bylaw allows you to grant
So
waivers.
leave it in so that it says that we allow it, okay? Anything
It
else?
doesn't say that we will.
Anything else?
I just have a question. At the end, 173-259 So it's at the very end. It gives severability information, and then it jumps to number 3. So I'm wondering what happened to number 1 and 2
Number 1 and 2 are on the first page.
on the first page.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions or comments? You got anything? Lauren? No, you're good? And I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Sanders.
I have a comment.
Would you please come up here, because we're on television now, big time. 3 people watching us want to hear you.
You sure?
Well, maybe 2 of them do.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. I've heard this board discuss this matter back and forth here. And I have some concerns here. I heard the gentleman here said that you're going to have to put 20% of this 750 in housing down there by the train station. I want to know if that is true, and we have not received any information from the state saying that it's going to change this or that because of this or that and so forth and so on, then I think that we're working in the dark if we're going to take and hope that we're going to get some from the state and some from the legislators that are going to do this or going to do that. This is already set in concrete. If you get a change to it, why couldn't you come back to this bylaw and change it? I don't quite understand what I consider the fuss about bringing this to the people and letting the people say nay or yay to it. If the state is saying you're going to put 20% down there by that train station, or else you're going to get penalized, certainly the town of Littleton don't want to get penalized. It just doesn't make sense. So my thinking is, if you can get an answer, Mr. Chairman, from this gentleman, is Littleton required by these guidelines, rules and regulations, whatever you want to call them, that we put 20% of housing down there by the train station, then that answers that question. It's 20%. No matter how you mold or shape it, we, at some point in time, whether it's now or later, we're going to put 20% down there.
You want to answer, Mr. Sanders?
The answer is correct. 20% of the housing units must be in that location, and that location must be 20% of the land associated with the parcels that are zoned for the MBTA districts.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think you got a problem.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't think so either, but every day you learn. Anyway, anyone else? I would still like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing and take a vote on
I
this.
so move.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to entertain a vote to send this to town meeting floor.
I so move.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you aye, Jeff?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
4, so it's a majority anyway. Okay,
And Mr. Chair,
yes?
may I say a few words?
Nope.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to.
Very quickly.
I want to thank the board for their diligence and consideration during this process. As I said earlier, our client has, from what I've been told, been working with the town for 6 years and intends to carry that forward. I want to thank the staff and the consultant staff for being nothing but professional during the process and having a good dialogue back and forth. So, thank you.
Okay, we have a 7:45 continued public hearing, 234 Taylor Street, adult use marijuana
Thank you very much.
establishment. Thank you. So, Maren, Tuesday with Emily? Yo, find out when she's available.
Yeah.
Even Wednesday morning, we could probably do it if you want. Monday's not good for me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Ryan will want the slides sooner than later, so.
I could do Monday before 3 o'clock. I can do it during the day, but I can't
Emily will
do.
not be able to do Monday.
Okay, so Tuesday, Wednesday.
That one I know.
Tuesday, it'd have to be in the afternoon. I have to be in Harwich in the morning, so.
Great, thank you.
Or Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to put up an easel with the plans on it, or do you want us to just tell them a few questions?
Are you proposing any changes to the plans or any
Not
updates?
since we submitted, but in case there were questions, we're prepared to show them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Peter Durning from Burns and Levinson on behalf of the applicant Sanctuary Medicinals. Thank you for welcoming us back this week. We believe that we're largely here to address questions that the board might have. I know that at the last meeting, we had presented an odor management plan, and we certainly wanted to give the board time to review that, to potentially have it peer reviewed. We have with us today Mike Lannon from Tech Environmental, the firm that composed that odor management plan. In addition, we have Susan Carter from Places Associates, who's been a consultant on this project. We also have from the company Rick Samerty. Same Harry. You have what? Put that, Nick. I'm sorry. Again, here to answer questions or concerns that you have. I know that the last meeting was largely devoted to the odor management plan, but there may have been other concerns that the board might have had as to other aspects of the permitting. So we don't have any affirmative presentation tonight. We're here mostly to respond to concerns that the board might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consultant, where are we at with a consultant to review this
Yeah.
project?
So Green reached out to the two odor specialists that you had shared with us, and they had two others that they reached out to. Nobody is available to do the peer review for the odor. So Green is moving ahead with the rest of the full engineering review. And they expect to have comments, their usual detailed comments back. And off the top of my head, I don't recall the date, but, within a few weeks.
So does the board want to do our own peer review of it? Take a look at the,
I don't think that well, we understand that the purpose of this addition is to allow a greater control of odor by moving functions that go in and out into a separate part of the building. We also, I'm just trying to think about our last meeting. We also understand that there is an interest in controlling odor, and that part of this plan will introduce additional carbon filters that will control odor. You know that we have received a lot of complaints about the odor over the time, so we're especially, so of all the peer review that we would want to have done, it would be the odor management plan. That's it's a little bit of a problem.
yeah, but, so then we'll have to, we have to do it.
Well, we would have to just say, there's a plan.
No, we'd have to walk through it and look at it logically and think about it, have him explain it to us, and then we're 5 people that are relatively intelligent, is it gonna work? Okay? Is this gonna solve the problem? And then I would say the consultant would tell us what the problem is this fix gonna solve it? And I think.
So the other issue is that,
I guess, no, before you go, I
Yeah.
guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm taking a
we
leap
can
of
have,
faith.
we can have a presentation on the odor management
I think
plan.
the leap of faith is you're trying to do the best you can to, he wouldn't be getting paid all this money, and he wouldn't be standing in front of us presenting a plan if he didn't think it was going to work. He's got to sell us on the fact that it's going to work. And
So the other aspect of the plan that I guess I would be interested in is when there is a complaint, what happens? I'm told by Maren that if this plan is in the planning board decision, then it goes to the building department
Oh, okay.
instead of the Board of Health. And my feeling is the Board of Health, for whatever reason, hasn't been completely responsive to complaints up to this point. I don't know. I don't live there, but we've had a lot of complaints, and people don't seem satisfied. So the fact that we have an odor management plan that's part of a decision
Right.
is just in itself an advantage. So, okay, I mean, we can go through it.
I actually have another option to
Okay,
propose.
okay.
So, first, I'd like to understand how many people were contacted for doing said peer review.
The 4 odor control specialists that are known,
And their responses were,
they're either non-responsive or they're not available, they're too busy.
okay? So my proposed option is that Mr. Sanders has in the past provided lots of comments, given his experience about what to do in this particular situation with the odors. He has also proposed to the planning board a idea for a proposed bylaw. So from the standpoint that he knows what he's talking about, and from the standpoint that he has been here at virtually every one of these meetings, I propose that Mr. Sanders be the peer reviewer as a town volunteer.
I would rather see Mr. Sanders work with the board to do the peer review, not rely exclusively on Mr. Sanders. I think that's a fair approach.
And we should certainly ask Mr. Sanders for his thoughts.
Before I ask him, I just want to see what the board thinks. I don't think we should rely totally on Mr. Sanders. I
No,
don't think that's fair to him.
I would like to see Mr. Sanders involved, but I don't think he should be our only resource.
Exactly.
If I may, I think we did give the board a sufficient amount of time to identify an expert. I certainly don't think that the board should be acting on an ad hoc basis to appoint a member of the community as to be an authority or an expert as to this. I know that Mr. Sanders has attended. I witnessed his comments last time. I thought he spoke with some authority. And yet, as soon as he was finished, Nick shared other observations that demonstrated that Mrs. Sanders' suppositions about the system and the use of negative pressure in the system, if I recall correctly, was categorically wrong. So I have a strong reservation about designating somebody who can attend, can comment as a member of the public. I think all of that is fine. But to turn and designate that individual as, farming out the planning board's authority on this, I think that would be a grave error.
That's why I'm saying I don't think we should use exclusively Mr. Sanders. I think the board should make a decision on its own and refer to Mr. Sanders if we have any technical questions.
I would go so far as to say, to get his input and recommendations based off of the input of the OMP and...
As an interested citizen, sure.
Mhm. Can I ask what? Mr. Freiberg. I know. I see you sitting there, and I'm going to put you on the spot. We're looking for a consultant who does odor consulting. The sanctuary has proposed a mitigation plan for it, and we're trying to find somebody to take a look at it, see if it works, if it doesn't work, or anything. Do you, in your travels, know anybody?
No, it's not my world. So unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, what good am I?
Well, we have to make a decision.
Right. I would like to see a floor plan and have somebody knowledgeable about the system explain which rooms are pressurized positively and negatively, and what this flow is from one room to the other, and the capacity and CFM of the fans and the exhaust system, and see if it makes sense to me and the board.
I think we have to do it.
we can do that off the board.
Yeah,
You prepared to do it?
I can do that off the board.
All right, if
The actual CFM of the new system won't be known until the actual rooms are laid out inside. Because it depends on what are used for storage and what are used for processing, would affect that. But I can run through exactly the design approach, for sure.
I think as we hear from the board, it would be a benefit to have that kind of presentation.
Okay,
You're
we
willing
can do
to
that. We can
share
just
that
walk
with-
through.
That would be great.
Before you do that, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Are you okay if we push you back a little bit? We have time.
Oh, please, yeah, it's
We
okay.
we have 2 cancellations, so we do have time for it.
Kids are
And I
better,
think
you know where else to
it'd be
be.
beneficial if you could walk us through, baby steps, walk us through it and
Yeah.
explain to us how it's going to work. If you're okay with being here till
Yeah.
whenever?
As long as it takes.
Thank you.
Great.
Someone's here for this one,
For which one?
for the 3 lots.
Ooh. Are you, excuse me,
The guy
gentlemen,
in orange.
are you here, sir? Are you here for the shared residential driveway, the 3 lots?
Yeah.
They've continued.
No, they'll be here at 7:30.
Oh, they are going to be. I thought you said they weren't coming.
Storage.
No, the storage.
Oh, the storage, all right, they will be here, never
So let's do
mind.
the easel thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we have?
So,
So you're in the right place.
Mr. Chair, can we just finalize or confirm what we talked about in reference to the peer review before we move on?
We're not going to have a peer review. We don't even have to do a peer review, so we're going to listen to it, and if we can make an intelligent decision, we're going to weigh in on whether we think it's going to work.
And we will incorporate Mr. Sanders.
If I have a question, I'll ask Mr. Sanders. I think the board's, it's imperative on the board, not on Mr. Sanders.
I understand that.
If I have a question, I know George is very knowledgeable. If I don't understand it, or if he wants to ask a question, I'm all for that. But it's ultimately our decision. Is that okay with you, George, by the way? We keep talking about you, but, nobody's really asked you.
What was that, Mr. Chairman?
That if we have a question or something, we can ask you to weigh in on it or something like that. I think it's,
I'll give you my experience.
are you going to give us your 2 cents? Great.
I'll give you my 2 cents.
All right, thank you.
I got 30 years in the nuclear chemical field, so I know what I'm talking about, and I got R&D, about 5 years experience as well.
Thank you.
That can go up higher if you want
Oh,
it.
okay.
You might need it for,
Just so everybody can see.
yeah, I just
What do you
realized.
do? You just-
The only thing is, if you want to put it on and then I'll make sure it's.
That's fine.
So while you're doing that, Ms. Carter, I ride my bike by there now, and I do smell a smell once in a while. It smells like, to me, it smells like burnt potato chips. It doesn't smell that bad, but I have noticed it a couple of
I
times.
will say that the one time I turned my car around in the parking lot, I smelled it too, but
It reminded me of burnt potato chips.
I don't know what it was, but I could smell it.
Okay, anyway, go ahead.
I haven't heard it described as burnt potato
Oh,
chips.
maybe
That's a new one to me, but,
Relatively benign.
That's a special kind of filter.
yeah, I guess so, yeah. It's the burnt potato chip filter.
Yeah, all right.
So essentially what the odor management plan is here, is doing is describing what they're gonna do with respect to dealing with complaints. So we'll run through the system in a minute, but essentially, one of the things it does is it establishes a proactive approach to odor monitoring. So what we did was we trained each one of the staff members that are going to do their rounds on how to understand odor intensity.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you questions. as-
Yeah, please, it's
pretend we're
very
speaking.
interactive.
When you say rounds, how often are they going to check the system?
Well, this summer when they were having complaints, we suggested they do it on a daily basis, and then as the complaints have subsided, they want to do it enough to make sure that they're maintaining and they're confident with the odor baseline. It should be done by somebody who comes into the facility before they go into the building, right? It shouldn't be done after you've been inside all day because you've knocked your nose down a bit. So the idea would be that they would do these rounds and they would check to see if the odor level has increased beyond the baseline in the parking lot that should be there. It should be very low at this point. There were some modifications that were made this summer that have made it much lower than it was before. We'll get into those in a minute, but the idea is they're doing these odor surveys, And based upon that, then if they find something, for example, this summer, which was, there was an issue with some of the lines from the pumps being clogged and they had to clean those out, and that particular leachate was odorous, and the neighbors could smell that right away. And that was something that would have been detected much sooner if they had been doing this proactive system. So it's the same in the odor plan in the back. We have these sort of odor surveys that we've done, and there's locations around the plant to do that. It's right around on the site and then right around to the nearest receptors, residents and so on. And that is what also will be done during complaints too, to verify complaints. And there's a system now to call the facility and to have somebody do that, okay? We've discussed
So
this.
if I could just ask, so based off those documents that you had in
Yeah.
the report, it identifies that the outside of the property line have not been done. It says that they will be done. So you haven't gone outside of the property line, is that correct?
If I remember the way it was worded, it was that you do the ones on site, and if you notice things on site, you do the ones a little further. That's typically what we do. In this case, the difference between where you were measuring on site and where off site is very different than if it was a landfill or a large food manufacturing facility or a wastewater treatment plant, for example.
Well, so the word says
Yeah,
additional,
what page are you on?
I don't know, there's no page numbers. It says additional monitoring locations that will be visited prior to visiting the on-site property line location when order complaints are made. So it makes it sound like there hasn't been any monitoring. So you can take a look at it, but
Okay.
it looks like that. And it's in the box.
In the
So-
box. All right, let me look what you're looking at, if you don't mind, excuse me. Yeah, the same one, okay, we're on the same page.
So what does that mean? Additional monitoring locations that will be visited are the green ones?
Yes, so when complaints are, so during their daily rounds, they're doing the yellow ones on site, okay?
Right.
When there are complaints, we always suggest that you go to the green ones. The green ones are further out. You want to be outside, you want to have the least amount of odor first, and then more as you go in. So we suggest that when they're doing it for complaint, that they do the green ones first, and then they do the yellow ones.
Okay. But
When they're
this-
doing it for their own rounds, they can just do the ones going around the plant, and if nothing has really changed, they're done. But if they find something that's out of the ordinary, they might do the green ones as well. Again,
My question
they're
though
very
is-
close to each other because the site is so
Right.
small relative to the
And my
fence.
question is, have they gone to the outside sites? It doesn't sound like they have.
Yes, I believe that they did that when they've looked at these.
Okay, because that's not in the data point.
Location 8 is on here. Location 7 is on here. Location 11 is on here. So
Okay.
they're all
So-
written on there, so they
Okay,
did
so-
do all
So
of
that
them.
is all data that has already
Yeah,
been
the point of this,
Okay.
this bullet here is to start at the least odorous and work your way in.
Okay.
So whenever I do a wastewater treatment plant, we always start at the outfall and we work our way back to the headwork. Because you want to go from the least odorous to the most odorous, because you're using your nose as your tool. This is being done with the ASTM odor intensity jar kits. So essentially what you're doing is you're smelling the odor and then you're smelling the jar, and that's how you're getting the strength of the odor. And what that does is it normalizes the difference between individuals that have different senses of smell. If you smell better than you smell, then you will smell the jar at a stronger than he will, but you also smell the odor outside at a smaller. Relatively, you'll both get a 1 or you'll both get a 2. And the reason why we have this intensity scale is because at low levels, you might actually detect something, but it's not necessarily a nuisance from the point of view as it's so outrageous that you focused on that. As human beings, we're constantly impacted by all of our senses all the time, and if we spend all of our time paying attention to our senses, we'd never get anything else done, right? So there's a certain threshold that causes us to want to react to something. And that's where we want to keep that level down in the 1s and the 2s, because that's down in that level. And that's the point of doing this, is making sure that the level stays down there. When it comes up, maybe there's something that needs to be done. This summer, the things that were done, which are built into the O&M plan now, is to do these rounds and to check on things. There were 2 things in particular that were done, that were a result of the facility being 4 or 5 years old. The first one is that the HVAC systems have these pressure gaskets on them. The gaskets, and then they're held tightly closed. They're outside and they're in the sun, and the sun has made them, dried them out, and the UV has degraded them a little, and they're now more brittle. And there was actually, you could hear some air out there, but that wasn't something that anybody was assigned to do, and that's what the OMP does. Now, there's people that have been trained on screening and looking for the odor, now are the ones that are gonna go out and ideally proactively find these things out there as the facility, ages with time, and replace things before they become an issue.
So are you saying that as of right now, the odors are not happening? In other words, are there currently odors still being detected outside?
Well, there are odors being generated in the grow rooms every day, right? And they rotate.
I mean outside.
There's always going to be a residual odor coming out of any odor control system, because by design, the odor control systems are not 100% effective. The idea behind any odor management plan or any odor mitigation plan is you want to maximize capture, ventilation, control, and dispersion. So in that last one, dispersion is what we use whenever we have odor control systems anywhere, is you get it down to a level and then you disperse it into the air.
Okay, you're not really answering my question. So my question is, as of right now, I know you've done these changes, and you said you've done all these things over the summer.
Yes.
So are all those things supposed to be mitigating the odor? Because as I understand it from residents, the odor is still happening.
Well, the odor is not going to be nothing. It's a cannabis facility, and every facility has some odor. The goal is to get the odor level down to a level that's acceptable and not a nuisance.
Acceptable by whom?
As in exactly what a nuisance is, which is when it causes you to do something different than you were going to do before. I mean, that's when you start getting into the definition of nuisance.
So you're kind of speaking in abstract.
No, I'm not actually.
No, you are. So in terms of, who's defining what the odor is? The employees who work there, or the residents who are smelling it out in the community?
Defining the odor is an experience. It's not a thing.
Would you refer to the ASTM, this jar thing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Anna's getting at. I mean, when you have a jar that's got an odor and you're comparing it to the odor you're smelling.
Yeah, that gives you an intensity, yes.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yes.
So.
And that's one factor, yes.
One factor. Okay, well, what are the other factors?
Well, I mean, for something to be considered a nuisance, and I worked with Maine DEP developing their solid waste draft odor guidelines. They still have dragged their feet on making final, but that's a regulatory thing. We don't have to get into that. But in that situation, for example, we had, there were levels on the intensity scale that we said it should never get above a 4. One event that's a 4 is a problem, okay? And then if there are 2s or 3s that occur on occasion, that's not a problem. But if they occur all the time, that's a problem. So whenever we're looking at nuisances, we're looking at frequency, intensity, duration, and offensiveness, okay? We're not looking at making the facility odor-free, okay? That's not the goal. The goal of any commercial facility or any industrial facility with respect to, well, you guys do this all the time with traffic and stormwater.
So why isn't it the goal to make it odor-free?
Because you can't. How do you get rid of traffic when you put in a warehouse? You can't.
I'm not talking about traffic, I'm talking about the odor that very specifically is emitted from this business. So in your report...
Odor is what happens when they make their product.
But you're making it sound like you know what, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
That's not at all what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, so.
I'm saying that
So you've
there's
heard-
going to be odor,
You've heard
and
that.
you're gonna keep it at a level that is below what would be considered a nuisance.
By
And
whom?
The state regulations under the air regulations
Yeah,
define
I
what a
mean,
nuisance
yeah.
odor is, and I think Patricia had walked us through that last.
Okay, and it's not,
So-
and there's not one exact level. Like I said, it's frequency, duration, intensity, and, effectiveness. So,
So let me go backwards a little bit.
mhm.
When there were complaints,
Yes.
whatever the scale you use, and when people called and complained, what level was that?
We were training people during the time of those complaints. The facility was operating in triage mode, so they were putting in fixes at the same time we were training them. And so if I had to guess, they were probably, higher than a 2 to 3. So it was probably recognizable, readily recognizable. But the question is, how often did it occur? Okay. Again, if I could just finish what I was going to say about.
No, let me just finish my question.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
when you're done with this system that you're
Uh-huh.
proposing, what's the threshold gonna be? 1? If 2 is noticeable and people are offended by it, what are you trying?
No, that's not.
Well, if people were calling and complaining, they were offended by it. The problems that you had during the summer, when people called and complained.
Right, okay. Yep.
I'm just saying, you said that was a 2 or a 3.
No, 2 or 3, or I don't know, maybe it was a 4 or 5.
I'm just trying to say
I wasn't
what-
there to.
Right, but we're talking about people coming in here and saying that, they went with a real estate agent to a neighboring house, they opened the car door, and they slammed it shut and said, "We're done."
Yeah, that's not
the
not
problem.
acceptable. I
And
agree with
We're
you.
gonna ask you is, can you make this so that people don't complain about it?
There's
So,
a-
Michael, why don't you pivot to talk about what the improvements will be, and then maybe you can land on how that will ameliorate.
Well, I think this is really all they care about.
Well, I think it's a part of what will address it ultimately.
Yeah, but I don't know, my feeling, we're just having a sidebar here, but, what often happens is that you don't care what's in the black box, you just want it to work, right? So.
I just want to
But I
remember.
think, what I asked originally was, can you walk us through
Sure.
how it's gonna work and what the volumes of air are? And, I mean, we can, make a condition that you put a 500-foot stack and, all your exhaust air goes out that stack. I mean, because that would get it away from the neighborhood.
Yes,
So, I don't think you want to build a 500-foot stack.
I don't think anybody wants to look at a 500-foot stack. It'd be like it'd be the Salem power plant between Middleton, you don't want that. Okay, we can walk through it, okay? I don't have a plan of the inside of the building, but I can tell you exactly the way it's laid out and what's happening. So right here is the main entrance, this section right here, that section's blocked off. That section is not part of the processing area. There's been an air curtain installed between that and the processing area. And one of the improvements that was made this summer was within that office space, there's a couple of offices, a lobby, and then a break room and a bunch of lockers. And since the facility was installed, there are a lot more employees in the building, which is a good thing. But there's also then a lot more people changing their clothes, coming out with clothes that smell like marijuana. So that actually, there's a recirculating system that was put in there to recirculate just the air in that room. And the reason for that is we want to keep that odor level down because that HVAC just goes, that's a typical HVAC unit that has a 1 to 5% air exchange rate for indoor air quality reasons, and otherwise it's just a basic HVAC system. Okay, so that's that room there. Then when you go in through that doorway with the air curtain, then you go into a set of hallways. There's a hallway that are almost like a racetrack. It goes around like this. Okay. On this side here,
Do you have the interior layout? Do you have that?
is that it? Yeah, that'd be perfect. Which one is that? Is that my design? Yeah, so if you want to, well, do you guys have like a copy of this? I don't.
Lauren, it's toward the back.
Yeah, this is great. This is perfect. This is the racetrack's right there.
Now keep going.
Same color.
Like that.
Yeah, that
There
one.
you go.
May have-
Sure, absolutely, I'm sorry. You want to keep your stuff together. So if you could pull that up a little bit, all right, so, perfect. So I'm gonna go over here.
Okay, and point those, please.
Yeah, so this was the area I was just talking about, right? This is the offices here, the main lobby, and this is that little green thing there, that's the air curtain. This is the end of the break room and the locker rooms and so on in there. This is the way that you go in and out into the main area. This is the racetrack I was just talking about, so to speak. Because it separates, this is the grow facility here, and that's the grow facility there, okay? All of these green units out here are the HVAC units that run each one of the grow rooms, and they're recirculating all the time. Odor is created almost exponentially in the grow cycle. In the mother room, where they are just growing the main plants, to get started, they take off the, whatever you call them, the little things.
Cuttings.
Cuttings, there you go. Take off the cuttings, and then you put it in the rooms to start it off. There's almost no odor, okay? It's just growing like a plant, like a weed. As you get closer to the end, when it starts to bud out, and it starts to get close to the harvest time, they start to starve them of water, and they tend to dry out a little bit, and there's a particular thiol that's created at that time, and a thiol is a sulfur-based compound that dominates the odor at that time. And that happens if it's an 8-week cycle, say, most of the odor is in that last 2-week cycle, okay? There are a bunch of rooms, so all of the rooms are in different stages. So yes, the odor ramps up in each grow room, but overall, the odor is constantly, there's a couple of rooms that are in that odor-producing phase, and then there are a couple of rooms that are at the very first stage and everything in between. These rooms are positively pressured by these systems. So the air flows around through there, they're maintaining the proper temperature, and then there's also dehumidification, because when you get to those last stages, there's a lot of humidity. The dehumidification is actually what removes a lot of the odor. So this is a fully enclosed system. In Massachusetts, the DEP approves 3 styles of systems. The fully enclosed system, a greenhouse system, which is one where basically everything's grown within a greenhouse, and when it's colder out, it recirculates. When it's hot out, it's once through air and goes outside. And then the last one is outdoor, where they're usually started in a greenhouse in the late part of the winter, and then they plant them outside, and they just have one harvest season, which is done mostly in the middle to the western part of the state. In the middle part of the state, there are some greenhouse ones, but they typically have a lot more buffer because of the odor concern with those. So this design is one that specifically really helps contain the odors, okay? So most of the odor is removed by going through this because it's in the moisture, and the moisture in the compounds are either, they're either water soluble and or they, the impaction on the mist eliminator system. And then the liquid is then pumped back into the room right over here, this purple room, and the water is recycled, and they take out the organics and they reuse it in their system. So that's the way you kind of get the odor out normally. So the other concern is that there are these are under positive pressure. Okay, so these rooms are under a positive pressure. This hallway in here is under a negative pressure. Because what they want to happen is, when the doors open, any contaminants would be prevented from going into the grow rooms and contaminating the products. So they come out into this hallway. When this new building is built, a lot of the things that are happening simultaneously in this hallway, including storage and stuff, will be improved because they will take place in this new building. So this is the existing building here. This is the hallway. This is the new building here. So when those doors open, there are some fugitive emissions that come out too, right? So that doesn't get removed through the water system that goes back into here. That comes into this hallway. And the two blue dots here are two exhaust systems on the top of the roof. And to get back to your comments about the stack, right? These are short stacks that are on top of the building. There's an ozone system that oxidizes the odorants in that, and then it's released. That's the current system right there. The problem with this is that this system is located above this grow room. It's really hard to get at. You have to go through a crawl space to get at it. Well, when we design systems, we like to have them in places where it's easily to get to, because you want them to keep it running. They want them to look at it all the time. One of the things that was done this summer to help alleviate the problem is what we like to refer to as belts and suspenders, right? You want to have more than one thing in place. So although these are treating the air that's in this space, there are two units that were put in here that are recirculating carbon units that are just doing the hallway to knock down the hallway at this time, so that if and when any of these odors do actually migrate to somewhere and get outside, there would be less. And then they also have lower loading before they get to these systems. This is not a system that's that easily to monitor, like effectiveness-wise, because they're spraying it in and then it's gone. So there's no real sort of inlet and outlet to measure it. What is going to happen with the new system is these will still be in place, and they will be used as, backups. Again, belt. We like to have belts and suspenders, and maybe a rope too to hold up our pants. So in this little box here, this is where the new carbon absorption system will go in, and we put in some ductwork in here that basically would show that it would come into here. Right now, there is also an air curtain on this room, and the reason for the air curtain on this room is there is a garage door there, and we want to make sure that we better isolate that from the outside. This room, this garage door is barely ever opened. It's mostly only opened if there's equipment or processing equipment that has to be replaced or something.
When you say air curtain,
curtain.
Yes, are you talking about a door or a bunch of
So there's a door there, and it's not plastic. It's actually air blown down.
Okay, so there's no real door there.
No, there's a door there too.
Okay.
But when the door is opened, the air curtain kicks on, and what the air curtain does is it forces air downward, and then away from the door. And what it does is it creates a barrier. It's not impossible, but it slows any air from migrating based on different pressures, because the real pressure gradient is this forced velocity down to create a curtain of air, which acts as a door that then people walk through that, and then it closes back up again, the main door too. So again, there's one of those there. There's one of those there. There's also where this light blue thing is, there's a high-speed door in addition to the security door. So your typical pull-down door you'd see in front of a store when they close at night is kind of like the garage door that's there. And then there's also a fabric door that's a high-speed door. And it's kind of overkill to have it here because they barely use this door, but they committed to putting those in at all their garage doors. Where it does help is over here, where they have their shipping and receiving. This is a space that we've found at a lot of facilities that have a good odor control system. This can be sort of the weak point in here. And there is a particulate removal system in here with some filters that also can have some carbon in it. And they put in an air curtain, again, in addition to the regular door. And then they have high-speed doors here in addition to the regular security doors when there's no one there. So when somebody comes in and product goes out there, the high-speed door is closed even before they load things up, okay? Like I said, that's one that can be somewhat of an issue, and the good news is when they do this, they're going to add another one over here, and this one's going to be better designed for capture with the sense of pulling into this odor control system. It's going to be very close to the new odor control system. The difference between this one and this one is this is going to be carbon absorption, so it does a whole range of compounds of concern, and especially the thiols that we're worried about. It's going to be located at ground level, so you can see it, and it's going to have duct that's going to pull from the existing building and from the new building. Of course, this is not really laid out yet because they haven't divided up the rooms exactly on how they're going to do it. But where this system is located, the two places where I always, or well, the one place now and then the two places later, is this area here, and this can be tied in nicely into that system to make sure that there is air always recirculating out of there, pulling out of there to go into the odor control system. So this building will have some other pickups because some of the processing that's done here, where they take the product and they dry it out and they make it into other things right now, is all treated essentially by these two things that will then be pulled in directly into the odor control system. So it's a better design because it's easier to balance the system. They still have those 3 units in the hallway, and I don't think there's any plan to take those out, right?
No.
Because we like to have belts and suspenders and a rope and so on. So this will actually improve the odor control in the future. And I think for me, the biggest improvement is that it's going to provide more reliability. And I think that's been the issue this summer is given the way the system was set up with only this sort of being there, if there's anything out of whack, you're out of luck. In the future, with the things in the hallways, with these available at this and the one up here, there'll be a lot more odor capture and treatment. This right here hasn't been designed with respect to dispersion, but you can trust me, that's one of the key ingredients here is because we can come up the side of the building here and make sure it's extending up. What we typically would do is a air dispersion model, a screening model, to figure out the sweet spot of where we're getting good dispersion relative to the height, so we don't oversize it. But then we also make sure that we're getting good dispersion, because we don't want downwash. Downwash is created, right now there's downwash right here from these, because they're short stacks. Mm-hmm. So when the wind blows over the building, that's why sometimes when the wind blows over the building here, you can smell stuff a little bit in the parking lot, because that's the residual touching down, where in the future when we get that up higher, that'll make a big difference.
Okay, thank you. Board have any questions?
And then, of course, this is the sort of the generic layout that was shown before. These are the different types of rooms that would be in there. And you can see it's really kind of packaging, kitchen unit, labeling, and then this transport and the secure storage is going to be connected right to that. Right now it's kind of like down the hall a little bit.
That's all the expansion, like?
Yeah. And this isn't the final layout. This is just something that was done at the time. And you'll notice right away, the first thing I said is, no, I want the space for odor control. So that's not going to be there. It's going to be more like the one we had over there.
When you ship the product, is it in vacuum bags, or how is it sent out?
I can answer to that. It's in their containers, Mylar. They're sealed, hermetically sealed, tamper evident, and put in bags and then put in bins, and we have to lock the bins.
So there's no smell coming out of them when you ship them?
That's what goes to the stores. I don't know if anybody's been in a dispensary. Because it doesn't really smell in there, right? It's just the packaging. It's sealed.
So, first of all, not for my own use, but for so what we learned before, which I was sort of interested in, is the actual odor comes from the growing plants.
Yes.
So there is no odor, additional odor created by the uses of this addition.
Yeah, I think that
The odor that would be in there is coming from opening doors or the failure or the not perfect alignment.
Right. If something in here is one of the processes that provides a little odor into that other area, you know, is gonna be, it'll be shifted over, but the bubble over the facility is gonna be the same, if that makes sense.
And it's creating more indoor air where that would otherwise be captured with the expansion.
There's more indoor air. Oh, yeah, there's more volume, but the main thing is loading, odor loading. So in the grow rooms, you have a constant flux of the plants off-gassing at all times, right? So we don't really focus on, for design, we don't focus on concentration, we focus on loading, mass per time, essentially, of odorants, as opposed to the concentration, which would be mass per cubic foot. That's what we think of when we think of concentration and how strong it is. We think of, you know, we think of that. But the mass loading is all created in those grow rooms, and it's continually occurring throughout the whole, that whole end of the grow cycle, where the plants do have some odor in them when they're going to these processing areas, but the odor is not being generated anymore, it's just residual odor. And that's why, so that is lower on the scale, so that's why we can still pull that into the system with those things. But the main thing is the grow room odor is really the concern. So being able to open the doors less by having this expansion and being more systematic on how they do it, I think, you know, because we had been to the facility when it was first sort of opened and they were nowhere near full capacity, and to go there now, you just see all the extra equipment that they found is beneficial to their process. And it's just, there's nowhere for it to go. So this makes sense to me from an odor standpoint from 2 points of view, really. Well, 3 if you count the dispersion. But, you know, being able to install another redundant system for the hallways, for the fugitive emissions, and then being able to systematically spread out the processes and the storage better, so that you go in and out of the grow rooms less. That's a big part of it.
Okay, you said that the grow rooms have active dehumidifiers, and that's one of the ways you get rid of a lot of the odor, is that the solids or the molecules stay with the water.
Yeah, so they're going through like mesh. They're going through like a mesh thing.
Yeah.
It hits the water and drops out, and then the water's pumped back to be recycled.
Okay. So what percent, I mean, can you guess what proportion of the odor gets taken out in that water process? And how much, I mean, so the rest of it would go through, presumably you have makeup air going into through the air handles and the HVAC system that you have. If you're exhausting some air out of the grow rooms,
Yes.
you're pumping other air in.
Yeah, you don't really, we don't look at it from the point of view of what's the percent that is captured by that. Because to me, that's sort of, it's part of the process. So when we look at odor control systems, what's the process and what's the add-on technologies? To me, that's just, the odor that needs to be treated is after it's removed from condensation. Because you need to do that, or else the plants would get too wet and they'd rot and your product would be ruined. So you can't do it without. It's kind of the way they do refineries. You know, if it's part of the process to make the chemical, that's part of the process. That's not part of the pollution control.
Don't bring refineries up.
Whatever you want to talk about, anything. Varnish manufacturing, how's that? What should we use that?
Do you have any other questions?
No, because my sort of point is there's this particular addition will not make the potential problem worse. It is designed to alleviate.
Right.
And what we're using this process for is to understand and require and assess, the intention of making the existing facility better.
Right.
In addressing the numerous complaints from the neighbors. So, there's really 2 parts to this decision. There's this, which to me is relatively non-controversial, and then there's the the systems in place and the equipment that you'll be adding or have already added to alleviate the problems.
Right.
Which we've heard a lot of description of. Now, the whole ASTM thing is very interesting to me. And would you suggest that we get training for our building official on that? If, you
Yes,
know,
I mean, we've trained state regulators, local regulators, police officers, landfill operators,
I mean,
whatever
if-
you want.
If there's an abutter who has a complaint and the building official, I mean, this happens with noise also, but noise is relatively, there's equipment.
Yeah, there's measurements.
Yeah,
So-
so, anyway, I'd never heard of this.
Yeah, so, and I think we're back to where we started on this conversation. And, I think, and I'm not trying to be evasive on what it is, and what is a nuisance or whatever, because it's not, trying to come up with numerical limits like that to put in a permit can be problematic, because you have to consider all the frequencies and everything. I think that it's obvious to me that when they had these problems in the summer, if that was the odor all the time, that wouldn't be acceptable, right? They didn't have this stuff in place. There's another facility, I'm actually working for planning board on that one, town manager. And it was actually, it's a greenhouse style, and they forgot that in one of the directions there are some neighbors, and it was problematic, and so we actually had them cut back to a certain level of, it's about 1/6 of the capacity, until they came up with a system to do that. Now they're just starting to pilot the new system. And when they pilot it and it works, then they can go back to their full design. So there are other ways, I think, that enforcement works better, because if there is a problem, it's obvious and it needs to be addressed. I think the main thing that I always like to express to everyone is that it's not going to be odor-free, because there's no such thing as odor-free. There's odor in this room right now, there's odor everywhere. We don't recognize it because it's not affecting us. And so there's a certain amount of odor that's going to be emitted from this facility and other facilities, but if the level is something that you're smelling it all the time, and you get out of your car, the real estate person, and it's so bad you can't go into the house, that's not good, right? That's clearly a problem. When that happens, you don't want to be like, you're in violation and you're going to be shut down. You want to say, how are you going to get back into compliance? And it would be a similar type of thing. You have 12 grow rooms? You're down to 1 or 2 now, until you can figure out the solution and come back to us and fix it. I think this is going to solve a lot of the redundancy problems, so that the potential for someone to get out of the car and open the door and have it be overwhelming. Or there was a gentleman here who talked about the party he had for his son a couple of meetings ago. That needs to stop. And it's probably already stopped from the point of view of now that there's 2 levels of redundancy with the recirculating inside and the ozone. It'll go down even further when we have the 3rd level, which will be this new carbons.
Do you have any questions?
I do, and I have some repeat questions that have not been answered, so let's talk about how to get those addressed. So I did have questions from August 8th that I sent in an email, because we were in such a rush that night, and those have not been answered, so I ask that the applicant respond to those questions. Another question is regarding so this is all on the site plan.
Was that an odor-related question?
No.
Oh, so I can sit there?
Yes.
Okay.
So with respect to the site plan that's been provided, so there were 2 different sets of numbers around impervious, and both sets of numbers were greater than 50%, which it can't be. So can you please explain what the impervious is?
Sure. In your bylaw, you have 2 different sections that address impervious areas. The first one is you have coverage by building. And the coverage by your bylaw in the IA zone, coverage by structures is a 30% maximum by structures. You also have a coverage by impervious, which would include roofs as well as driveways, pavement, walkways. And in this case, because it's not just one little concrete pad for your regular sized HVAC unit, we've also included all the concrete pads around the building and everything else. So, you can have, in the IA zoning district, you can have, let me put my glasses back, 30% maximum coverage by buildings, and a total coverage of all the impervious of 80%. So in this case, in the proposed situation, we're proposing 17.7% by buildings alone, and 33% when you consider the entire site and all the impervious. And where this also comes into play is we're in the Water Resource Protection District. So we're above the threshold for the special permit, which is why we also have a special permit for Water Resource Protection District. In the Water Resource Protection District, your standards are much stricter. So the maximum in the Water Resource Protection District for impervious cover, so that would be roofs, driveways, parking, and in this case, all the concrete pads, that maximum is 50%.
So are you saying you're seeking a waiver then?
No,
Against that 50%?
we have 33%. 33% impervious. The impervious is inclusive and includes the buildings.
Okay,
The
well,
building coverage is part of the impervious, but only the buildings themselves.
so you're saying it's 17% plus 33% is 50. I get that.
No,
It's not total.
they're not additive. So the 17% is buildings only, and that comes into play in many towns for like a floor area ratio. But the total impervious on the site is only 33%.
Which includes the buildings.
The buildings, the parking lots, the driveways, walkways, and all the concrete pads for all the HVAC in the site. So the total coverage on the site is 33%.
Which is less than 50%.
Right, 50% in the water resource protection or 80% in your IA zone. So that
Okay.
includes the buildings.
All right, thank you for explaining,
Yep.
because in another place it talked about 25% pre-existing and 27% for the concrete pad, so that's where it was
Well,
confusing.
We had initially projected that it was going to be 25%, and I don't think, when I asked the question, they said, oh yeah, they're bigger units than your standard industrial building. I did not realize how large they were, so we updated our existing conditions to 27%, which was the as-built after all those units were put in. We felt that was important to flag out to the board because when we were before you, however many years ago, it was 2018 or maybe 17, we did not project as many HVAC units on such large concrete pads. So that's why we said that the current percentage of as-built from what's there right now is 27% lot coverage. And then with the new building, it's mostly all building that's coming in, is only 33% coverage.
All right, thank you. So can you help us understand what the status of the host community agreement is with the select board, given that you've had it since March, they've had it since March 27th?
Sorry about that.
And the reason why I ask is because in previous applications, the host community agreement is always done first before the planning board gives its decision.
They already have a host community agreement.
I
All it
know,
has
but
to
it's,
be is
but it's
renewed.
getting renewed, right?
Yes.
But don't you think it should matter that, they actually renew it first?
No.
And I think with the new regulations around HCA's that was put out by the CCC, I believe that was just still in review. I believe we were still looking into just outlining that, making sure everything was set up. But as Chairman said there, since it's just being renewed, we're just making sure, buttoning up that it's upholding those new regulations that the CCC put.
So this planning board decision expires in December of '23, right?
The renewal, our permit. I believe that is what it says, but looking into it, there might be a extension on that, based off of And I believe you can,
COVID extension, I
Yeah.
believe, extended all permits, so it wouldn't expire this December.
When would it expire then?
I have calculated it before, I don't have it on the top of my.
Could you please add that to my list of questions to get answered? Thank you.
Maren, do you know? I mean, it's a standard set of days.
No, off the top of my head.
So that is definitely a question that, having a select board member here, I would ask that your board provide some response or direction as to when, because here's the issue. If our town doesn't allow this to come in, allow the renewal as a host community agreement, then why should the planning board allow this to continue to move forward?
Wait, time out. Why would we not allow it? They already have a permit, they're going for a renewal. That has
Right.
nothing to do with this site plan.
And what I'm saying is that in the basic model, there is a host community agreement in place that is current, and then we can make our planning board decision.
We already made our planning board decision. This is a modification to it. You're gonna worry about whether their host community agreement's gonna be renewed next year sometime, and worry about application for a modification. Doesn't matter what this is, whether it's a grow facility or whatever. They have the right to come in and ask to expand. The fact that we're looking at all the stuff that we're looking at now is because they're before us, asking us to look at the expansion of it. It should have nothing to do with their host community agreement, nothing at all. It's an expansion of an existing business, and I don't understand what you're trying to, if they get closed down, they're at their own peril. If the select board decides next year not to renew their host community agreement, that's their problem, we have to do our job, not worry about whether the select board's going to approve it or not.
I explained why I brought it up.
Well, you
so-
can bring it up all you want. I'm just saying, I don't agree with you, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but the host community agreement is not, it's not in our jurisdiction, and it has no bearing on this. They have a license to operate their business, and they're looking to expand it, and that's how we have to look at it. Simple as that. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's how I
Unless it's not
feel.
renewed.
I'm in
So-
agreement with you, Mark.
Well, if it's not renewed, it's not renewed.
Right.
It's nothing to do with
Right.
us.
There's nothing to do with us. It's their
They're at
problem.
risk.
Like I
not-
said, I provided the explanation for the question.
Okay.
Thank you. So-
I'm sort of, I'm sorry, Anna, go ahead.
I'm sorry, so in the documentation that that was provided for the OMP, page 20 has some misinformation on it. It says to contact the Westminster Health Department, so it looks like that needs to be corrected, amended, and there are,
Well, you might be shocked to learn that this isn't the first one I've written, so it's probably a carryover.
And we understand.
right, and the phone
Great
number
catch.
that's in there,
Okay, we'll make sure that that's correct.
great.
well,
great
and that
catch.
it's working, so that's a non-working phone number right now.
Well, it shouldn't be Westminster. We'll
Well,
put
I
it the
guess
right way.
no complaints are going through to Westminster, are they?
Yeah, right.
One question, and Chair Montanari, this goes back to our meeting notes that we just approved from August 3rd. A resident had asked whether or not the Board of Health could look into testing for contamination of the ponds from when the septic system was afoul. And you indicated that this board would contact the Board of Health for that. And I just wanted to follow up and see if that's been done. I think that's important from a contamination of water perspective to ask.
Sure, we'll ask it, but it's not our jurisdiction. If there's an issue, the Board of Health is more than welcome to go out there. Okay, but it's not something to do with, I'm trying to keep this germane for what we're looking at. Not go we're not on, never mind.
Just
So-
a point of information on that. There is a new septic system out there, and Jim Gariffi from Neshoba Board of Health has been out on that site many times in conjunction with the installation of the new system, and he did not voice to my office any concerns about any of the runoff prior to getting the system repaired with a new leaching area.
Okay, thank
He was
you.
out many times. He seemed very unconcerned. He said it happens all the time, and that it was a small issue.
Okay, thank you. And so then the final question I have after listening to the process of the testing that's being done. So what I read was that there's going to be a system set up so that residents can call, right? And so I'm requesting that be, again, a dashboard or whatever the word is, but that it be more transparent. Because if one neighbor calls and nothing happens, it goes unheeded, then nobody knows about that except that neighbor. But if there is something that's transparent that shows, oh my gosh, there's 10 neighbors that are actually raising this as a concern. The transparency is really key here, especially given what they have gone through. And so I would ask that you consider using a format for those complaints that can be seen online, that can be done online. I mean, I don't know if it could be as simple as a Google form that a resident fills out. It goes into a spreadsheet that then everybody can see. So if you would please.
I'm a little confused by that, because if one person has a complaint and nobody else cares, why does everybody else have to know that?
No, that's the wrong way to look at it. I think what Ann is trying to say is she wants a log so that people can follow what's going on. If there's a complaint, they can go online and they can look at it, they can see it and see if it was resolved. I think there needs to be accountability.
I understand what you're saying, but that's typically done by requiring a condition that they would report something to the planning board or to the Board of Health every month, or every 3 months, or every 6 months, and then you would have that information. That's typically how that's done.
And I don't want to speak for her, because God forbid I speak for Anna, but I think what she's trying to say is she wants transparency. She wants anybody to be able to look up and say, well, did somebody complain about this? I smelled something, did somebody else complain about it? I think she needs, and I don't know how to, I can barely turn my computer on. I don't know how you do this, but come up with an idea of a way that you can interact with the Board of Health or the building department, that if there's a complaint, other people can see that there was a complaint.
I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll look into that.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
Jeff.
I don't even remember. Oh, well, one thing, I just want a little detour. There's a lot in the news about the CCC and some kind of disarray. Are you noticing any problems in its board and its...
That doesn't affect day-to-day
Okay.
business, Jeff.
Okay. We've got to move on. Delisa, do you have any questions? Nope. Can we continue this till, I think what'll happen is I think we'll digest what we all heard here. Oh, Mr. Sanders has a question, please. And I will take Mr. Sanders' question.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to wrap it up.
George Sanders, 682 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, have some real concern about this method that they're using, and come in and say, I'm sort of kind of wrong about the negative pressure system. Carbon filter will not remove the smell of marijuana. Carbon filter will not remove that. And I have a problem with the fact that if the smell is outside of the building that they're saying they need to go around and check, that means that you got leaks in the walls that is getting outside, and they're looking for the atmosphere with wind speed 3 to 5 miles an hour from the point of release to break up that smell with the natural chemicals that's in the environment. So from wherever it released, what is the downwind distance that you will not smell it? What you have here is a situation that they're telling you how this is going to work, but to control it, to say that there's a negative pressure in the hallway, there should be a negative pressure anywhere that it gets out into any room. It should go into a filter system that will filter that smell out. And carbon filters will not do it. And I have some real reservation about you giving them approval to go in and operate if the people had this smell so bad that they were smelling it down there. And if I'm listening to what they're saying, the amount that was in there, it must have been a whole lot of it being released that those people were smelling that. So those numbers wasn't at 1 or 2. It was a lot higher than that. And I said to the people of the town of Littleton that we don't want the marijuana smell as a nuisance in your community. If we have to go and put a bylaw in that says that these facilities will put a negative pressure system in with carbon charcoal filters to get rid of the smell, then that's what I suggest that the people in the town of Littleton do. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, we're continuing this till what time?
Okay, so November 16th, if we do it 7 o'clock, November 16th, a good amount of time.
Can I say something relative to what was just said?
You know what, we're running out of time.
I'll be real quick. Two things. One, carbon absorption is considered BACT, best achievable control technology for marijuana treatment facilities, for marijuana grow facilities. One, and two, we're talking about positive and negative pressure areas. So there will be negative pressure areas. That's the hallway areas. The positive pressure is inside the grow rooms. The grow rooms have no access to anywhere but inside the building. So the positive pressure leaks into the negative space, which is in the hallways. So it's not, and then that's where the odor control system is effective, okay? So I agree with Mr. Sanders about the fact that you do need to have the negative to make sure you're capturing for within the hallways. Yes. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, do you believe that we need to have more public hearing on this?
I don't think anybody on this board is ready to make a decision, so I'm continuing to, I'm not, we do everything in a public meeting, so you you get both of them. We're not ready, we've just heard all of this information about the negative pressure and everything else like that. I think we need a chance to look at it on our own. People want to go Google what's the best management practice for smell and stuff like that.
Okay.
We need time to do that.
Okay.
So I would ask if you would be ready to start looking at a decision at the November meeting, because usually you take at least two meetings to review a decision. I can't read.
Well, I just want to respond. So, one thing, we were unable to have your presence at the previous meeting. While you sent someone, they're not nearly effective as there was explanations, but you seem to be the authority. So I would just say that we're really back a meeting. Anyway, so that's all.
I mean, I think we're willing to accommodate it, but we also expected that you would have a peer reviewer in that interim
I get that,
time period, and I understand that
we're
didn't
doing the
occur.
best we can without one. No, I'm done.
No, it's a quick one about peer review. At the previous meeting, you had suggested perhaps only having drainage review, and now it sounds like you're having the full proposal from Green. The reason why I'm saying that is that may be able to expedite if it was only drainage. I don't care which way, but previously it had been discussed about only
I
having
think your
drainage.
site stuff is the least of your worries. It's the odor issue. I think,
Okay.
as I said earlier, it really is only drainage, and that's, I'm hoping, we get a nice, concise report from Green. You're not doing a whole lot, you're adding a building.
Right.
Okay?
I was just trying to facilitate and have that be a non-issue if we
Well,
could move
if
that
there's an
along.
issue with Green, you need to address it before the
Okay.
16th. So that when Green comes here on the 16th, or we get a letter from them, everything's hunky-dory.
So their proposal was a lot more inclusive than just drainage, and that was my question. Is it just drainage or the full? It was a $7,000 review, and that was my question.
It's the full review.
I was going to say, I thought we said yes to the full review, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the board consensus.
Oh, okay, that wasn't made clear to me. Okay.
Um,
Given that you don't have any peer reviewer is there something I can do by providing draft
Send us
conditions
best
or
management.
something, or?
Why don't you send us all the best management practices of how to design one of these? You know, the carbon fiber, why that's the best management practice for this.
I believe the OMP that we submitted
Yeah,
accomplishes this.
yeah, but if there's specific concerns, I can supplement it, that's all I'm getting at.
And actually, I picked up on the potential conditions. Staff is always happy to accept any examples or from other sites that have worked.
Okay, because that might help with get us
Appreciate that.
past the odor part, is if we had that where it made you feel comfortable.
Okay. 16th November,
November 16th, do this one at 7 o'clock?
sure. Thank you. You guys all have your homework. Thank you. We're running really late. Mr. Freiberg, are you,
Do you want to do, you guys want to bring down the road?
Yeah, that does.
do you want to do them first and we'll do you
Yeah.
last? If you can agree to that, I'm good with that.
Lot more than I
We'll take them out of order. We have a continued public hearing, 555 Newtown Road, open space development, special permit, shared residential driveway, special permit, stormwater permit, 3-lot Skyview Lane, residential development.
Okay, so you're gonna suspend the hearing for 550 King Street until after this one's over?
Sure.
You're awesome.
You know what I said? What about, and we're going to continue 550 Newtown Road till next month as well. Might as well take care of that right this second.
Yeah, 550 Newtown Road, let's squeeze that one in like at 7:15, but
Okay.
holding my breath on them.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Matt Waterman, Land Tech Consultants. Here for the continued hearing, special permit for Skyview Lane, which is 555 Newtown Road. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Our last meeting was 2 weeks ago on October 12th. We got comments from the board. We took those into account. We resubmitted plans within a couple days on the 18th. We had a site walk on the 21st. I know there was a couple members that attended that. We've gotten peer review back, and then we've drafted a decision for consideration. We addressed all the concerns that were raised at the last hearing, including providing additional screening. We provided clarification on Form 1. We resubmitted signed applications. We updated all of the reports, the traffic study, the O&M manual, the site plan responses to the peer review. There was a significant package that went back in. The peer review that came back yesterday was limited to just a couple of technical typographical errors or clarification. At the site walk on the 21st, we kind of fine-tuned some of the potential screening and buffering. If we're looking up on the screen, we'll start in the upper left where we kind of ended our site walk, but the residence that kind of extends further in along the access road to the water tower and the conservation land that's to the west, 559 Newtown Road. We talked about providing additional screening. You can see where it gets a little close to the property line. We did look at the plans. They didn't make it into that plan set that was submitted before our site walk, but we can say that we can provide a minimum 20-foot buffer. It's shown as being significantly more than that the further west you go, but we can certainly provide a 20-foot buffer, no touch, along that property line. We talked about along the next one will be further south along where our entrance road is. There's a neighbor to our right, who's Mr. Minwar, who's been at a couple of the meetings, and how we can, facilitate buffering and screening along that, where his house kind of sits close to the property line. The back of his house is kind of outdoor living space. We talked about buffering and screening with plantings at the last meeting. The plans are revised. They show a 230-foot stockade fence, 6 foot tall. And then I know Anna was asking at the meeting, what can we do to stay away from the property line? it's kind of cleared in that area. That's kind of where the existing driveway is. So, we're not going to within 10 feet of it, but, we're not clearing it, but it's already cleared. So, the grading can't be pushed any more further to the west. But we are providing a significant stockade fence. The last one, and I'll be quick, is down along Tehadawon, which is just to the east of our detention or infiltration basin, where we get close to the properties of 299, 295 Tehadawon. We stood and looked kind of north towards, where the detention basin sits. There was hope that we could pull some of the grading away from the property line. There's a handful of mature trees in that area. Unfortunately, we can get 10 feet for the most of it. It's about a 200-foot run behind both houses, about 100 and 100. But there's about a 30-foot stretch where we kind of grade up to the property line or within 5 feet. But elsewhere, we can maintain that 10-foot buffer. But we did try to look to see if we could minimize grading. I think we could certainly fine tune it in the field. I think we talked about that at the last meeting, providing a condition to walk the line prior to any clearing to save any trees that, come within a couple of feet of the erosion control or the limit of work or the tree clearing line, whatever you want to call it. As I said at the beginning, we did submit draft decision. This is our 4th meeting. I think we've addressed most of the green concerns. They have just a handful of 3-4 questions. We'd ask that the board move towards making a decision.
Thank you.
So Tom is here from Green International.
I agree. The remaining comments that were open were fairly minor. It was just more, they have inverts that are noted in the HydroCAD calculations that are missing on the plans. So just coordinating the two. And then some pipe sizes and materials that are missing. So just, minor comments that need to be added. I know Anna had a question about one of the comments. I don't know if you want me to go into that comment.
Certainly, yes, if you want to explain it from your perspective.
Yeah, so there was a comment about frontage and access. So lot 3, when we first reviewed it, we didn't realize that that green portion along, sorry, I'm
You
not
can
sure.
stand up if you'd like.
Yeah, that green portion. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. So we didn't realize this portion was a part of lot 3 when we did the first review and made the comment. So that's why we said that it was surrounded by all properties initially. But now that the applicant has clarified that that is part of that property and it does have frontage, then that does address the shared driveway concern. But there was a rule within the A&R, like A&R required subdivision, that a lot that has frontage should have access on the frontage road. So it does have frontage on this road and not on Newtown. And it's up to interpretation what access means, like whether it means a driveway or a walkway, or if it just means that it has frontage. So that was the reason why we made the comment, and we kind of deferred it to the board for their decision.
Yeah, and actually on that case law tells us that you're able to step across the frontage to get to the lot.
We've had that issue for 30 years.
There's no existing guardrail, there's no cliff.
There's no water.
There's no giant wetland that you couldn't
It's
get
not
over.
illusionary.
Correct. It's not illusionary frontage. It's real frontage.
So one of the ongoing questions is whether or not the fire department believes that that roadway is going to be okay. Do you have an updated letter?
I did.
from them?
I did not hear back from them. I submitted a request to the fire department, the fire prevention office. I didn't hear back.
Well, he's got a brand new baby.
No, I didn't. I was unaware of that. So, well, congratulations. Don't mean to add any pressure to a newborn. But I.
But
So they were-
I did hear back from Tom Clancy, the acting fire chief. He was going to push on for a response, but Tom did share that he didn't have any concerns.
So I would like to make sure we get a letter from the fire department?
Well, I can ask, but we have heard back, so.
There's
Okay,
not
I
a-
would still like to get a letter from the
There's
fire
not-
department. So, thank you very much for being here, to be able to respond to that. And so, given the fact that we just got the updated revision or revised version 3, so you all have had a chance to look at that, and that's why you're saying that there are just a few comments left.
Right, I just returned it to Mara, and, what was it, yesterday maybe?
Very recently.
Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't see that, okay.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, very.
Okay, because there were 13 comments that were deferred to the board. Are there still 13 comments that are deferred to the board?
Some of them were closed, but there were still some, I think, that were still deferred to the board.
So I would ask the board if we want to go through those now or at the next meeting.
I'd like to do it now because I don't want to have the next meeting.
I agree.
I agree.
Go ahead. What's the outstanding issues?
Hopefully Maren can pull it
Mr.
up.
Thorne, can you also
Yeah.
go through those with us?
Yeah, of course.
Let me find it. Go ahead.
Okay,
Why don't you
so,
just read
Start
them
while I'm
to us?
looking.
you want me to just read them to you?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one was, per special permit checklist, architectural plans and landscape plans should be provided. No architectural plans and landscape plans are included in the submission. So they've revised their submission to include landscape plans, and they requested a waiver for the architectural plans prior to building permits. Is that acceptable?
Not a problem.
Okay.
I don't, do you have a problem with?
No.
No.
We
Next.
requested a formal waiver, and I believe in the conditions of the decision, it stipulates that they be provided prior to building permit.
Next.
The next one is relative to the fire access. So we're
We've
just
done it.
confirming that the fire department
Mhm.
has approval.
Thank you.
Let's see, grading, drainage, and utility easements depicted on the yield plan and existing conditions plan. There are no existing utilities shown within the easements. The applicant should confirm there are no existing utilities within the existing easement. Proposed lots intersect with the easements. Please explain how the easement impacts the development. The easement grantor and grantee, we defer to the board to confirm if the additional steps required to be taken to establish the proposed easements and remove existing easements. So I guess we want to kind of know what is kind of if they have to do anything to like remove those easements, and I don't know, is there any other requirements that you?
It's illegal, and
Yeah.
I did include it, or we have included it with the decision that you board will consider potentially, that any easements that are associated with the previous subdivision that aren't being utilized with this subdivision are to be extinguished legally and recorded at the registry of deeds. So that's more of a legal issue. I can't answer that from a legal perspective, but we have documented it, and it's something that we'd have to do prior to,
Okay.
I don't know if I stipulated it prior to building permit or not, but
Yeah, you requested it, that recommended
at the
condition.
time- it would be done at the time everything's recorded.
Right, and actually, I hadn't had a chance to read through that,
Mm-hmm.
but that makes a lot of sense for that direction.
And so would those easements impact the open space in any way?
The easements were along the
Roadway.
prior subdivision roadway.
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't,
Okay.
they're null and void.
And the next one was the one that we discussed earlier, with the access. And then, let's see. Let's see, no slopes resulting from grading of streets shall exceed 1 foot to vertical 4 feet in cut situation, slopes off both sides of the road. From station 0 to 4.5 is set to 2 to 1. The applicant should revise the design to reduce the slope to consider 4 to 1. So the applicant responded to minimize and limit clearing and overall site impacts. A waiver is requested from the regulation to increase the cut fill slopes to 2 to 1 along the entrance and common drive. The erosion control plan has been updated with additional erosion control measures, including jute mesh netting and specific seeding. Additionally, the landscape plan has a detailed planting plan within areas for 2 to 1 to help stabilize slopes. So, we agree that the applicant has taken extra measures to reduce erosion within the steep slopes, but, since they're not complying with the 4 to 1, we ultimately defer to your decision.
Waiver requested with the conditions that were just noted.
So what's the impact?
So the impact is if you adhere to the 4 to 1, which is pretty level, that you will tear down more trees and more buffer for certain areas of the access road. So the trade-off is you meet this standard, which I think is extreme, or you tear down more trees.
So
you tear down more trees to meet the standard, or you allow the 2 to 1 in these specific areas so you can keep more trees.
You go to a steeper slope so you can keep more trees. Simple as that.
Yeah.
That a buffer for the project.
So we good with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Next one is, just about the septic system and should be reviewed by the Board of Health, which is always, a condition of approval that we always make.
Agreed.
And then the next one was about how they are connecting into the town's drainage system, and that they should have, DPW approval for that. And basically, Land Tech asked for a condition of approval to obtain a street opening permit with any right-of-way within the new town road.
So you're saying we should, what's the
So-
question in that one?
So I think that, first of all, have you been coordinating with the DPW on the drainage connecting into the town road?
I don't recall off the top of my head if we had received any letters back from DPW, but I don't recall them having any comments. Just for some background, before Green was involved, this was subdivided back in 2006, and Dr. Chang, thank you, reviewed this extensively. We mimicked that same design. Green had additional comments, kind of some additional newer best management practices that we incorporated. But we have not heard from the DPW, but we put a response that, we'd be required to file a street opening permit with the DPW prior to any work.
Right, which basically means that DPW would have to agree with the work that they're doing
Correct.
in order for it to go forward.
And we have not heard otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me. They're gonna review it no matter what, it sounds like, because they have to get the permit through them. That was all of them.
Great, thank you. So I know that I, for one, really appreciate all of the work that Green International does for the peer reviews, and being able to have that level of detail and demarcation about which issues are still outstanding, which ones we should review, is always really helpful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate to hear that.
Okay, does the board have any final questions? Anybody?
I have a couple of comments, questions. Based on the site walk,
I'm asking, let me ask Mr. Sanders first before we wrap it up. You have a question too?
I'm
George is
Mr.
gonna-
Minior. Oh, I'm sorry.
George is gonna beat you.
Okay.
George Sanders, 672 Great Ruin. Mr. Chairman, yeah, I was going to ask about that site walk and whether or not they flagged the area, how far it was going to be cleared back, because there was concern about the trees.
You heard them answer that, yes, they did, they're putting a bigger buffer in, they did.
They did. So the neighbors had the opportunity to make the walk?
Yes?
Okay.
One of the neighbors, yes.
Okay,
One of the neighbors. Okay, thank you.
thank you. Yes, sir.
Joe Minior, 553 Newtown Road. Again, I appreciate the site walk. We were out of town in Pennsylvania. Of course, it never fails. We would have wanted to be there, but we appreciate the patience of the board and the detail. Just a couple of questions on the statement. So, is the language calling for the proposed 230-foot, 6-foot tall stockade fence shown on the developer's plans legally binding and enforceable by the town if the planning board approves?
It'll be a condition of approval.
It will.
Right,
So-
and what that means, you guys know, Mr. Minnie may not know, what that means is it technically becomes part of the zoning and can be enforced through zoning enforcement process.
Building
through the
inspector will
building.
make them put it up.
And one of the ways is to withhold
Building permits.
Okay, so it's not just text on
No,
a
no.
plan, it actually has teeth.
It'll be one of the conditions of approval.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. If the fence is knocked down after the project's approved and the residents are now in the house, does that same language, is that enforceable even after the project's approved and people are living in the house to restore the fence?
There'll be a homeowners association, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
The homeowners association will address all maintenance issues, whether it's that, the detention basins, mowing the common areas, all that stuff will be addressed in their homeowners association.
So post-approval, that's how that will be enforced?
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess I'm trying to visualize, and I appreciate Matt clarifying for me the color coding of the nylon strips, the orange versus the yellow and what the yellow represented. I guess, as I understand it now, it's the limit of work. So my question is, what will the land look like between the fence on the top of the berm and the limit of work boundary that's nearest my property? And I guess what I mean by that is, there's current elevation and topography. Does the driveway go down, down into that, but that land stays the same? Or does the driveway kind of stay there and the land is built up such that there's a...
Yeah.
It's gonna go down, so this is as high as it's ever gonna be, and you're gonna cut into it, so it won't get any higher or any lower, it's the natural.
So what's there now will stay and everything is lower than that?
Correct.
It's not a hybrid where some comes up and some goes down, or it all comes up, it goes down?
At least along your property.
Along that property, along the berm that's closest to me, it goes down. Because you had said that I think when we talked earlier, that it would rise, Matt, it would rise as the berm, and I maybe misunderstood what you were communicating. As it goes from left to right, obviously the driveway rises.
And the existing grade rises.
Right.
So there's still a cut, even though the existing grade rises.
But it's the grade that's there now. It's
Yes.
not gonna be
Exactly.
artificially man-made, trucked in, built up.
Well, that was one of the reasons we talked about the 2-to-1 slope, in order so
The
that-
cut, right. I didn't know if it was a compromise of some down, some up, or if it's all down, or, but,
No, it's advantageous to your property.
sorry?
It's advantageous to your property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, to have that trend, yeah, absolutely, from a
Right.
stormwater runoff, for sure.
They're making the driveway at a uniform grade, and as you know, that it's steeper at the bottom of the hill. So as it goes up, the hill will go up and the road will stay behind the hill at a uniform grade.
Right, so I think Mark answered the question. On the limit of work, that land stays the same and everything is engineered down from there.
Correct.
Okay, right, yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I did.
Anyone else? Do you wanna entertain a motion to close the public
So
hearing?
I still had the question.
Oh, go ahead.
Comment. So to Matt Waterman's comments from our site walk on Saturday, talking about, especially with Tigan's family, he had mentioned that something that's done over in Westford is that the property is staked, so that the abutters can see exactly where the property line is. And so I would definitely like to add that as a condition. But also,
Any work within like 10 feet, we would stake the property line prior to any construction.
right,
When we're doing the limit of work. We typically stake the hay bales limit of work, but we would stake that property line so that the homeowner knows where it is, contractor, everyone knows where it
Okay.
is. So if anywhere where the property, a lot of it's stone walls, so it's, I don't know if we would just mark it, but in that area behind 559 Newtown Road, we would stake that. It's kind of woods on both sides, so it'd be helpful.
well, and so what I was going to ask is there are really just a few abutters, and so would you please do that for the other abutters as well, because there shouldn't be any question as to where the property line is. In particular, on Tehadawon Road, the abutter that's going to have the basin right above their house. And one of the reasons why I'm asking for that is because a second comment that Mr. Waterman made that day is that if you have the guys out there, I use guys in general, out there with the chainsaws taking the trees down, that they can oftentimes just get chainsaw happy and start whittling away at the trees. Well, so what can we as a board do to keep that from happening? I mean, what kind of an enforcement can there be? Because it has to be done in advance, because once the tree is gone, it's gone. Doesn't matter if we find them, because, you know, so what?
Yeah, I think if we stake property lines with work within 10 feet, or we could list the 4 addresses. It's 559, 299, 295,
Right.
and 553.
Exactly.
Where we're coming within that 10 feet.
Yeah.
We're going to change it for 559 to be about 20 feet. But for the others, we can certainly do that. And we can include that in the decision for, like, specifically.
All right, thank you. Yep.
And normally when they're building a subdivision, they lay out the road, so the guy knows where to cut, and they lay out all the site work and everything else in advance with stakes and
Well,
flags.
that's
and-
great, but if it's accurate, and obviously we've seen this in other developments, so how do we keep that from happening?
You don't. You hire professionals that know what they're doing, and you make sure. What are you gonna go walk out and check to make sure the stakes are in the right place?
Yeah.
You can't.
Well-
It's up
Well,
to
the
them.
stakes,
I would advise residents do that.
I think it's reasonable to have the property line staked.
No, I'm talking
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the road layout and where the drainage stuff is all gonna go. They have to calculate, figure out where it's gonna go, and stake it all out so that when whoever comes there with a bulldozer knows where to dig.
Maybe it's even going so far as to say that the engineer's developer has to notify the abutters when the tree clearing is going to happen, so that if they choose to be out there to verify what is and isn't going away, that they have that opportunity to do that. So I would ask that that be part of it as well, when it comes time.
We talked
So-
about it at the last meeting, I did at least. And I didn't get it into the draft decision, I forgot, but I remembered on the way here, was including a condition that the hay bale line be staked by a surveyor and inspected by the town or its representative prior to any tree clearing, to confirm that it's consistent with the plans.
Okay.
Right, and because that will show the limit of.
Yeah, we'll stake the hay bale line or the limit of work, wherever that tree clearing limit is, or if there's erosion control, it'll be one or the other. And then you go out, you pull tapes if you're concerned, and you know, it's supposed to be 40 feet off the wall, check, you know, and a lot of times it's just visually, yes, you can visually inspect it, that it's consistent.
Okay.
But that would, I think, answer that question,
Thank
to
you.
ensure that that limit of work is where we show it.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to close the hearing, take a vote, or talk about the conditions of approval, or we,
How about we take a look at the draft decision between now and the next meeting? If this was just given to us,
I'm ready to vote.
I am too.
I am too, so why don't we send the draft decision to town council, as long as they don't have any problems with it?
Okay, so.
wait a minute.
We have the
Stop.
draft.
No. First of all, we have a public hearing before us. We still have information that needs to be brought in from the fire department. We still have to
No,
look
we
at.
don't.
No.
Yes, we do.
No,
No, we don't.
Yes,
we
we
already
do.
have approval.
We already have an answer.
No,
from the
they
fire
have
department.
not looked at this since March.
Do you want to have a condition? That's fine. Let us, I move that we close the hearing. We should do that first.
So, any other comments? Because this is it.
No, I mean, I would be happy to condition that we provide that letter, and if we don't get a positive letter, then it would be on us
To satisfy
come back
the
with
fire
any
department.
changes.
So what
We're
is it
comfortable with the
about,
fire department's going.
I'm sorry, what is it about this board that you have to rush everything through?
This is
instead
not
of-
rushed.
We haven't
Wait.
even looked at this decision
How
and you're,
can
and you're
you
willing,
call this rushing?
because you haven't even looked at the
4
decision.
meetings. No,
You
how
have
many
not
meetings?
even looked at the
We
decision
don't
and you're
need to
willing
look
to
at the
vote on
decision.
it?
Yeah, wait, this is a
For
standard
three
No, this is
subdivision.
not
subdivision,
okay.
We've had multiple.
We need to be able to wait to
No,
look at
Mr.
the decision.
Go ahead.
Well, let's not have this argument at this meeting.
Okay.
Why don't we just put it up to a vote or not? I mean, first of all, we have to close the hearing.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I so move.
I second it.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
No.
Fine. Gee, there's a surprise. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision subject to the conditions of approval passing muster with. You gonna send them out to Tom?
Actually, if you do the wording of, final wording as per town council, that gives me and Matt and town council the opportunity
Exactly. like
to
we do
capture
on-
everything that's been discussed.
That hasn't changed in 30 years, but, okay.
Well,
I'll entertain a motion that we approve it with the conditions of approval subject
this
to-
hasn't even been reviewed
We don't-
by the board. The decision that was created by the applicant has not even been reviewed. Eyes have not even been set on it, and you want to approve it? That
Yeah.
is just wrong.
We-
Don't be surprised if one of the neighbors, files a lawsuit against
Go
this.
ahead. We do this all the time. We have.
We do not do this all the time, sir.
We have
We do
decisions,
not.
we have decisions written, sent to town council and vetted by town council. If they're okay with it, then we approve it.
We are the board to be able to review the decisions, and I'm really surprised at my colleagues that are willing to go along with this when we haven't even looked at the decision. When did you look at the decision?
Yeah, what could we possibly be looking at?
98% of the content of the decision is the 3-lot subdivision, the road layout, all of the things,
The peer review, we've gone through all of
can't even
that.
understand
Right,
what would be in the
and what-
decision
Right,
that would be,
but we have not even set eyes on it.
We
And
don't
we
have
don't do
to.
that as a board. We've never done that as a board.
We've done,
No, we have
Yes, we
not.
have.
Let's
Then
just
tell me
vote
which
on
one.
it. Let's just vote
We're
on
gonna
it.
vote
All
on
right,
it,
this is a
so
waste of our
let's-
time.
So to the residents of Littleton, this is not okay. This
Okay,
is not
well,
acceptable
you know what?
practice.
Okay.
I agree.
I don't appreciate this, Grants.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
know.
This is, yeah, I know.
yeah, this has
You are,
nothing to do with it.
We have spent
Your
so much time on this.
comments are to.
They're antagonistic.
The
Yeah,
conditions
well,
of
whatever.
approval are gonna be about
And
the,
We have never
the
not
lack-
looked at a decision.
The lack of trust in staff and town council being able to bring this to.
yeah.
I
But
But
agree.
we've never done this
I
before.
agree. And
Nor
I'm very
should we.
sorry, Maren, that you have to hear
All
this.
those in favor of approving these 3-lot subdivision as presented with the conditions of approval subject to the town administrator, the town planner and town council approving them, signify by saying aye.
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 Now say, Anna should be able to say nay.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, done.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you,
That's,
thank you. Okay,
Thank you very much, everyone.
thank you. All right, that's it. We're, you don't have anything else, right, Maren?
Yeah.
Executive, what? Oh, yeah, I forgot, we skipped you. Oh, my God, I'm sorry, I forgot we skipped you.
So,
Are we all set? This is the subdivision, this is, you've run it by Maren, you've run it by town council, everything?
Yeah, good evening, Rick Freiberg from TEC, Civil Engineering for the Project, 550 King Street subdivision. So we were last in front of you a couple weeks ago, and we did leave with 2 homework assignments. So number 1, we incorporated the Board of Health comments into the decision letter, which was one of the things we were tasked to do. And the second thing was to draft the covenant The covenant, as you might remember, this is a discussion about a bond versus covenant. How do you secure, basically, that the roadway will be constructed properly? That covenant has since been reviewed by the owner and by the lender on the property and satisfactory to both, which is great. Lenders can sometimes be tricky.
Tri-party agreement, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been reviewed by everybody, and that's also included in your packet. The last thing was more of a request than homework, but we did show you a nice rendering.
Oh.
The temperature in the room feels not great, but
Let's see.
do you want to look? Dealer's choice.
It'll be the dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm dead in the water.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, so we don't get to see what it is? You didn't bring a...
Well, can we get it
My
posted?
screen's like not
Posted on
tiny.
the
I could probably hold it
website?
up and.
Yeah, that looks great.
Let me see.
So
So
what you just handed us, Martin, is this what's posted online? Is this what's posted online?
I have no idea. This is exactly the same. No, this is comments from, additional new comments from town council. His comments are in blue. Chris provided comments today on this. Maybe you'll want to
not as big as the TV screens.
Okay. That's it.
So, as I walk out there, so one of the challenges we had before with the previously approved plan was like that east-west, the site's very long
Corridor.
along King Street, and it was like, we want to make the site really walkable, but it's very long, how do we do that? And you remember there's probably a lot of surface parking.
Squeeze it.
So we did exactly that, we squeezed the buildings together, and what we did was we created this pedestrian corridor, and so what you have is storefronts lining both sides of it, outdoor lighting and seating, landscaping. I think it's going to be great.
So this makes sense to me because I think that at the original, there was some thought that, the circulation would be along King Street,
Yeah.
and which didn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Because it's not that great.
Yeah, and
And
it's-
now you have like a place.
That's
that
right.
you're- yeah.
What's great about this too, is just the geometry, the way that it lines up, this empties at the green space.
Mhm.
So
So-
it's like the green space is like an anchor to this. And
So this building butts up to King Street, and there's nothing on the front of it. Everything's going to be
Everything's
on the
gonna be
back.
behind on the
And the other
backside.
one, everything's going to be on the
Well,
front.
you would have an attractive.
Front.
Front.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to meet form-based codes, so it's
Yeah.
going to look all the way
Right.
that it should along the front. But the primary accesses for the buildings will be from the interior, which should also help kind of keep the activity internal to the site.
I saw it.
Yeah, and less, at street front, which should be helpful to the neighbors as well.
Okay.
And I think, and we can get that uploaded to the website too, so it's easier to see, and for people who are watching from home.
That'll be great, yeah, it's very attractive.
Yeah, I think when we have even more to show you, I think you're gonna like them a lot. It's nice.
When are you coming back again?
Could you show them to Mr. Rombacher?
George, you want to see it too? What the hell? You paid till the end, right?
You have to around here.
I told them not to come, we're not doing executive session.
Okay, good.
They don't have a decision, they can't agree amongst themselves, so I said, I'm not dragging
I
Chris.
was really bunched up that we
Well, they want to make sure we go along with it. And I've told Sherry 100 times, there's no guarantee we're going to go along with anything.
This happened with 40B at Great Road. All these agreements, without, just.
So I said, I told Chris, it's not worth this thing. They can't agree to it, why would we even entertain it? We're not going to talk about it because they have to sign it. And which may never happen.
So they aren't really even that close.
They're not close, no. Not again, not anymore. Each one keeps pushing the goalpost a little further.
Extra unit.
An extra lot. Now it's, won't do it subject to getting septic permits and, but that has nothing to do with us. Why are you putting it in as a condition of approval? And then bringing it back to us. If they can't agree to it on their settlement. Anyway. Okay. Board have any other questions about this? This is basically what we've all talked about. It's purely so that you can get funding, which I know is critical at these days after listening to the governor yesterday. It's a very rough environment
It's a
out
tough
there.
climate, but this is, for us, this is a long-term project, and the economy will come back around again.
Mhm.
And so we feel comfortable we can get started with construction next season. By you all being flexible with us on this, allows us to do that, get the lending in place, and before these things convert to fully amortized, when they come out of their construction loans, hopefully the rates will be a little better, the environment will be a little better, and off we go.
Great.
Yeah, I was reminded that Mass Development can provide backstop for loans if that needs to be an option. So that would just be the town working with.
One question, would Mass Development be unable to participate if we didn't comply with MBTA communities?
I don't know if Mass Development is
Part of it.
tied in or not. That's a good question.
Just curious.
Don't know that answer.
I don't think they are yet. My guess would be that as time goes on, there'll be more and more things that get restricted from communities that don't comply. I think they're starting with, like MassWorks funding, and I think they're probably increasing the stick as they go.
I believe there's 13 right now that are all combined
Total,
together.
they added 13, so it's a total of 16.
Yeah.
16.
grant programs.
16 granting processes that will not be,
You won't be
time.
eligible for, yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Close the hearing? Yes, Mr. Sanders. This is a three for night.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, when are you going to approve this so they can get started? Because my main concern is, whether you know it or not, the taxpayers here in Littleton is bailing out that piece of property up there. Last year, we paid an extra $130. I want to get the town out of my pocket, so just get back up there.
I'm trying to do it right now. If you sit
But
down,
do
I'm
it.
trying to get a vote.
But do it.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the, what do we call it, as,
Okay, so we have a draft decision on your team. Today, I just put a copy up there. Today, we got comments from Chris Heap. He wanted to confirm whether or not there were any waivers requested.
No.
Okay, so, 1, 2, 3, on page 4, waiver section, we would use the wording pursuant to subdivision, Littleton subdivision control 249-100E. No waivers have been applied for or granted in connection with this definitive subdivision. And then his, let's see, Exhibit A, Condition 6, peer review, comments from Green International to the satisfaction of the planning board. Peer review to the satisfaction of the planning board. Back page, traffic study, question from Chris, what will the town use the traffic study for? As this condition is currently drafted, there is no consequence to the applicant if the traffic study discloses any issues, problems, or concerns. The applicant simply needs to provide the traffic study. My guess would be that the board will have that reviewed, peer reviewed, and that, same circle that you've asked for with the peer review. Other pending input from the state.
Yeah.
Is that a MEPA project?
MEPA's gonna.
Well,
look at it.
there's kind of 3 layers to it.
Yeah.
One, you guys should review it too. But there is teeth in it in that, maybe not as part of the subdivision approval, but our special permit approval, the master plan approval, requires us to have that approved by you, the traffic study, before you allow us to move forward with phase 1 of the buildings. So while there's not a reference to it in simply subdividing the parcels, you all won't let us build the first building until that traffic study's been signed off by you and your peer reviewer.
And not only,
And we still have to go to Mass DOT and to MEPA.
they won't let you do anything
That's
until
right.
you're satisfied now.
But you all have that protection already built in the special permit for the master plan that we did last year.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah, do we have a timeframe or goal for decommissioning the wastewater treatment plant prior to what?
I'd say prior to connection to the town's municipal system.
That would make sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they have a.
Yeah, and the reason I'd like to delay as long as we have sewer available would be in the event that we secure a tenant for the existing IBM buildings. Obviously, they would need sewerage just until that system comes online.
It's unfortunate it's in the location that was your first housing.
It is very unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. They put it where there was space, and that space is the space we want to use too, so, yeah.
And Chris suggests condition number 10, before commencement of construction, the applicant shall provide easements to the town for all rights-of-way and pedestrian walkways shown on the plan. The easements shall be in a form, okay, we need to talk about that one. The easements shall be in a form suitable for recording, provide for access by the town and the general public, and shall be subject to review and approval of town council. Applicant should know that acceptance and recording of easements will require the approval of town meeting after the documents have been reviewed and approved by town council.
Yeah.
I thought you had some general language.
So we identify the easements on the plan. My advice, if you guys were open to it, would be, we find it's always better to grant the easements once the thing is built, right? So that way we're not handing over rights on land that's not constructed or part of an active construction area. If it's okay with you, maybe we could just work on the language about that one.
Yeah, I would recommend, because I know some of what Chris was thinking about is how this ties in with state funding.
Yeah, that would be the only reason it would exist at all. You know, like, we would obviously, like every shopping center, the public goes into the shopping center, they do it without an easement. They're patrons of the businesses, they're welcome to be there. That would be the same with us. The difference with us is if we utilize state funding to build the infrastructure, then it does require public easement over that land where the infrastructure's. But again, we went through this on another project. We did that at the end, not at the beginning, when the project was built. So you're not giving pedestrians, for example, access to construction areas, active construction areas. You give it to them when it's completed and after it's been inspected by the appropriate reviewers, so that it's safe to use for the public as well. So it's protection for the landowner and protection for the public. It's deemed suitable and complete and ready for their use.
Okay. Obviously, you're going to need them sooner or later.
That's right. That's right.
Anything else?
Those were the comments from town council.
Yeah, we're amenable to all those. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to approve the subdivision as presented with conditions vetted by town council? Or make it up any way you want?
Someone else. I've been doing it all night.
Anybody?
But I'll be happy to. I so move.
Second?
Second.
I guess all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And sorry it was so late.
Please don't worry about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience.
What?
That was a pitiful aye.
Me? Or all of us? Thank you. All right, I make a motion that we close the meeting.
So moved.
I'll go on.
Second.
Have a drink. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, shut the computer camera off.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
we're not doing executive session.